We should fake people out and say, "Hey, everyone, welcome to Twitch." What?
What? What?
Twitch has been around for a long time.
Years.
I don't know how long it's been around.
DJs. Beers. DJs. Beers.
I want another one.
DJs.
Drinking
Years.
wine.
DJs. Years. DJs. Years. DJs. Years. DJs.
Oh look, Matt can change his
I want
camera
another
angles
one.
now too.
DJs.
Oh, multiple cameras, nice. Okay, I'm the only one that needs to like up my production in here.
We're like super advanced here.
Years.
Multiple camera
DJs.
angles.
Years. DJs.
Mo,
What is that?
tell us what is this?
Oh,
Fishing lure.
what can you catch out there?
I don't know.
Cold.
Everyone, we're live. Welcome to DJs and Beers, episode number 24, I believe it is.
4, I think so. Cheers.
Cheers, guys. We're live, right? Because I'm a little puzzled. I just saw Ali live on my Facebook stream DJing. How is it possible, Ali?
Technology, baby.
Or is it Ali live and we're recorded?
It's
I think we're recorded.
Yeah, we could have done this last week.
Could have, yeah. Who knows? Let
Who knows?
people figure it out.
Who knows anymore?
I still don't see the live feed on YouTube.
It's on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
I see it.
So Mo, where are you?
I am in beautiful Santa Barbara, California. Your vacation.
Give us a little view of your view.
I'm out here at a beach house that belongs to a friend of a family member. We're my in-laws, so hold on one second. Right here on the waterfront.
Not so bad, huh?
Wow.
Look at that.
It's a bit foggy out here, but the fog is burning off slowly but surely.
It looks like the tide went down too.
Yeah, the tide did go down. But it brought all these rocks up to the beach because yesterday this beach was all sand, and I guess it just like buried it.
It's crazy.
Santa Barbara is supposed to be so beautiful. I've never been.
Yeah, my brother lives up here, and he came out for dinner yesterday and hung out. So we spend quite a bit of time up here, but this is the first time I've been to this particular beach house.
Have you been to Big Sur? That's supposed to be also.
I've driven through Big Sur. I've never really stayed over there any given period of time, but it's really beautiful there as well.
Shout out to all our fans in Big Sur.
Yeah.
Sure, there's plenty of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Santa Barbara is really nice. If you guys get a chance, you should come out here sometime.
But Mo, are the smoke or the fires affecting any of that area up there? Because I know
Well,
it's pretty bad up north.
When we drove in, there was definitely a lot of smoke. And, there was big fires here in Santa Barbara last year. I don't know if these ones have reached Santa Barbara this year, but the smoke still reached out here. But right here on the coast, it just seems like the smoke just gets carried out to the ocean, so it's not as bad. Beach.
Because like the air quality here in SoCal is like way better today than it was just a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Where, like, unhealthy air quality index, and today was like kind of.
On the news, it was like worse than in Beijing or like the typically kind of polluted.
And up north, it was like really terrible. Like the numbers, they were like in the 200s, where versus like a normal day is like 50. So pretty bad. But I think it's clearing up a little bit now.
Yeah, it's been nice to get away though, get out of the city because it's been an incredibly drab past 6 months in lockdown. And even though we're still in lockdown here, at least we're by the ocean, so it's nice to get away for once.
I think you spelled Barbara wrong. FYI.
We're missing your fancy microphone sound though.
Hey,
Well, I am very happy to be outside of America right now.
Ali got away just in time.
Just in time.
How's Barcelona, Ali?
I'm actually in an area of Girona right now. I had to record a stream here. We're about an hour and 15-minute drive from Barcelona. It's been totally surreal to be back after 7 months. And just seeing my friends, you know, like people that I've been staying in touch with regularly, just by text message or FaceTime or whatever. To actually be here, and having gone through that journey, the journey wasn't fun. You know, I must say, having to wear a mask for nearly 20 hours, and having to take 3 flights to get here was the hardest part. Not the flights really, or the you know, long layover that I had in New York, but just having to wear the mask the entire time.
Yeah, you even had to wear the mask on the long haul flight?
You've got to wear it unless you're having your dinner.
Right.
And meal service was like very truncated, no pun intended, Dave. They kind of just, you know, they came out very quickly after takeoff with, what do you want to drink? And then like 2 minutes later, they plop your tray down.
Right.
And that's pretty much it. So that was kind of nice, because oftentimes we get on these long haul flights and we just want to eat real quick and go to bed. But, you know, it obviously felt a bit rushed. And I made a good decision of checking my bags from DC all the way, not all the way to Madrid, but only to New York, because I figured I would want some fresh air before, you know, continuing on to New York. And I had like a 6-hour layover in New York. So I rechecked my bags. I went outside the airport for like an hour and just took in all the air that I could, and then came back in, put the mask on, and it was like 6 hours in the lounge with the mask. Then 6.5-hour flight to Madrid, then another like 3-hour, you know, stint in the lounge wearing the mask again, and then mask again on the flight to Barcelona. So it was rough, but I'm happy to be here.
Did you get any like marks on your face from wearing a mask?
No, I'm still waiting. I'm waiting for some residual side effects from extensive mask wearing, but I haven't.
So, are you staying now, Ali? Do you have plans to go back, or are you in Europe now for good? Or
I'm staying till when I got here. You know, I kind of made my arrangements to fly back before Thanksgiving. But now that I'm here and I've spent almost a week kind of settling in, I really want to extend that to maybe mid-December. So
cool.
We directly have an audience question by Matthew Mills. Ali, why are you in Spain?
Why is who in Spain? Me? Oh, because I've been renting in Barcelona. Barcelona has been my European hub for the last, I would say, 13 years. And yeah, because I don't know about you guys, but like the majority of my gigs, like I'd say about 75% of my gigs are based on this side of the pond in Europe. So it just made sense to have a European base. I mean, some people choose Berlin, some London, some Amsterdam. For me,
That's a good question. Why do you think 75% of your gigs are over here?
Because underground dance music culture, I mean, dance music culture in general is way ahead of the States, you know. And I think underground dance music, you know, is I mean, we know from playing all the events and amazing clubs that we play. I mean, granted, there have been incredible venues and events in the USA and unbelievable talent that's inspired, you know, artists globally. But like the culture feels more relevant in Europe, it seems. I don't know. Is that controversial to say that, or is that like you guys feel that?
We'll find out later when we check the internet.
maybe my Twitter will get canceled too. What happened to your Twitter account?
I don't know. I literally posted the remix I did for Depeche Mode 2 years ago, and I got an email today that actually told me, you posted this in 2018. This is why you're blocked now.
And
That's
it's your
pretty-
remix.
Your post in 2018.
Yeah, that's pretty fast. They're like really spot on, I'd say. But it was
It's a good thing that you're on mute records because you can sort that out with a couple text messages, right?
I don't know. It's I don't know what the algorithm was there, but there was a simple solution. I just had to follow the steps online to promise I'm never going to do this again, and I was unblocked.
You are.
So Twitter, you didn't lose me yet, not yet. But guys, we're having a beer, which is great. But I know someone who's having a beer at 5 a.m. You guys know him too? Shall we?
I think it's time to introduce the legendary Carl Cox, who is in Melbourne right now. And we had a quick check-in with him before we all hopped on, and we weren't sure if he was going to be drinking this early in the morning. But let's find out.
But for him, it's late night. And our show is literally around the world. So let's welcome Mr. Carl Cox from Melbourne right here. Yay!
Hey.
I've got to join
Cheers,
you, boys.
Master.
Cheers to that.
Good morning from me to everyone, and it's lovely to have a beer at least and share it with friends. And even if it's virtually, it doesn't matter. It's still good. My beer actually is a Hans beer, and underneath it, it's a low carb.
Oh. Nice. Keep it light.
Trying to look after myself. So cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Carl, I have a question. Like, a lot of us DJs, depending on what time we're playing and how we arrive in a new city, we'll take that disco nap, right? And then, we wake up at a certain time and we try to, prepare the music and get ourselves in the right mood. How is it for you going into that crazy club environment where the people have been there, drinking and partying the entire time that you were resting? Like, do you feel like you need to enter, into that environment somewhat, on their level, or how is it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great and a fantastic question, and I'm still around to tell the story after being doing it for so many years. It's not the most healthiest thing to be doing, of course it isn't, but that's what we do. I mean, there is no initial time for drinking whatever you want to drink and however you want to do it. Everything's okay in moderation anyway. But it's a good question to ask, because I've literally sometimes have gone to sleep for like 2 or 3 hours before I go on.
Yeah.
So that means going to sleep before 3 o'clock in the morning. So most people have had their day. They've gone to they've had their day. They've gone to have a shower. They've got their tea or their dinner. They're fresh. They go in and go, right, I'm going to go drinking. I'm going to go partying. I'm going to go mad. And we don't actually go on as DJs, as you know, until after 12 o'clock midnight. So we're either on the same time as everyone else going in, or we get initial amount of sleep because we're going on at 3 o'clock in the morning till 6, 7, 8, maybe sometimes 9 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. So there's no way I'm not going to have a drink at all. But the thing is, when you wake up an hour before you go on, you kind of like, you get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're like, you look outside, it's pitch black, and wherever you are, there's no one around everything. You're thinking, this is crazy. I can't have breakfast. I can't have dinner. I can't do anything. So, and if sometimes some hotels don't even have room service or anything. So I'm in the mini bar, I'm having some olives, some Pringles, I'll get a Red Bull. I'll go bang. I have a Red Bull. Bing. All right. Red Bull. All right. Now, sometimes you can go a bit harder than that, have a Red Bull and vodka, and you go, all right. All right. So you get in a lift, you go downstairs to the lobby, you get picked up, you go to the club. Club's hot, steamy. The people are going crazy and going mad. It's already, the party's on, and you've just got out of bed, and you've had a Red Bull and you're just being picked up to go. So I don't have to have Red Bull every single time. But the thing is, you kind of slowly but surely get on their level once you get to the club. But once you're at the club, you want to have a drink. You want to toast to the people that created the party. You want to be kind of like a little bit on a level, so you kind of go in like, yeah, have a beer, you know, or have a, you know, especially in Spain, you always have a shot of Jägermeister in some ways. All depends where Ali is most of the time. If he's there, he'll always have a sake, and hey, have a sake, woo, and away we go. And then you start getting into it. So when you start playing, I actually forget to drink when I'm playing. I don't know if you ever noticed. I'm never really on the drinks half the time. I'm like playing. People always have to pass me something to keep drinking. And then, you know, glass of champagne, bang. Have a shot, yeah, no problem. Tequila, you know, here's some more beers, yeah. And you're just getting into it. By the end of it, you're like, woo, oh, okay.
If I'm around, I usually remind you to have a little shot of something.
have a little shot. But the thing is, you're enjoying yourself, and the thing is, everything's in moderation. Now, sometimes once I finish my set, I sit back and I think to myself, I've had vodka cranberry. I kind of like that. I've had shots of Jägermeister and sake, you know, and sometimes have a tequila, and then also have a couple of beers and some glasses of champagne throughout the course of the evening. And you would never normally drink like that. You don't come home and drink all of those things in one go. Do you know what I mean? In the course of a time that you're there, I always try to say, right, stay on one drink, Carl, and enjoy that, and then have water. So if I drink, have water. And that's how I kind of do it while I'm getting into it. But it's quite a shock. Everything, and you never get used to it. You can never go in and be like, well, I've just got to have water tonight. Yeah. You can do it, and some DJs do it, and I see them, and they're very brave by doing it.
Is there any other job that you guys can think of where you're encouraged by your employer to a degree to show up drunk for work or high or whatever? I mean, is there any other job out there? It's like, you know, the promoters or the venue owner or whatever like that, you know, they want you in that green room before you go on, you know, sipping away and during your set. And you're working, you know, is it work or is it playtime? I don't.
Wow. Ali's getting full philosophical here. Carl, I had a follow-up question to that. Like, how many times did you set yourself new limits and then didn't keep them? Like you set yourself, like, I'm going to go and just drink water tonight. Like, how many times did that actually work out for you? And what have you learned over the span of your career in that cases? Because I'm still trying to do that and I fail miserably at it. Like, how did you deal with this?
Yeah, I mean, there's no answer for it. It's all down to self-will, you know.
Cheers.
You know, and it's all down to you. At the end of the day, you can stop drinking, you can carry on drinking. I mean, I've seen a lot of DJs that drink a lot. The sets don't go well. I mean, they're thinking, yeah, man, I'm killing it, and actually, you're drunk. You've got half an hour left. You're lucky that you got to this point. Well done. Most of the DJs that are not drunk do amazing sets, got to focus to know what's going on. I try to keep myself under a level so I'll know what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Because at the end of the day, you're in a very responsible position, even though we are, you know, on the source when we're going in. You still have to drink responsibly, like the advert always says, you know, drink responsibly. And that's what you have to do, because, I mean, there's nowhere at any point in my career, and we're talking at least 40 years of going out religiously every weekend, playing on Friday nights, Saturday nights, Sunday, and sometimes Monday night, and of course Tuesday nights for 16 years straight at Space in Ibiza, that you saw me fall over and pass out behind the decks at any point. It's not possible.
Speaking of Space, one of my favorite parts of, you know, whenever I was invited to play for you on those nights was, you know, seeing you in the back room. Like, it was usually after I finished playing and you had just arrived, and you know, the staff there would always tell me when you had arrived and you were in the back room, and we'd make a point of coming so we could have like a ceremonial preset shot with you, and just a bit of chit chat. And then I think that, you know, I think it seemed like you craved that as much as we craved seeing you at Space before you came out and did your thing. And then there was always afterwards going right back to that office and kind of reflecting on the past 3 hours or so. And it was always, one of my favorite parts of playing for Space. What was that? Was that important to you to have that ritualistic pre-set and post-set kind of gathering of close friends and sharing a private moment?
Yeah, I think it was really important that we did that. I mean, a lot of DJs that played for me at Space, a lot of them didn't drink. They're not drinkers. They used to have a bottle of water and cheers to the bottle of water. I'm just like, well, you never cheers with water, with alcohol, man. It's like bad juju, It can be, but we always did it. It didn't matter. We've always respected people's ideals of how they wanted to do it. But most of the DJs and friends around the DJs took that kind of ritual ceremony, and we never really thought of it as something like that. It was just we're having a shot, toast to our lives based on what we were involved in, what we were doing, and how we were doing it. And we're adults. At the end of the day, my mum and dad, they always had a tipple. All the stories that you hear about anyone's mum and dads and uncles and grandmas, and they always had a little shot of sherry or a little bit of rum or something that kept them going. At the end of the day, and for us DJs, it's the same thing. Little shot, to celebrate our lives based on what we're doing, and very thankful for that. And once we have actually played and had an amazing time, because at Space, you walked away from it, and it was an absolute mind blow by what we've just done. So you kind of came back and celebrated by what we've just done as well. There's no way you can go back to the office and go, oh, okay, I'm going to have water now because that was an excellent night. No, we're going to have a beer, we're going to have champagne, we're going to have a bit more Jägermeister, whatever's left. We're going to celebrate that. And why not? We've made over the years, we've made a lot of people happy. I mean, billions of people happy over the years. So you might as well make yourself happy by celebrating by what we've just done. At the end of the day, by ourselves, and that's with everyone, all the DJs, people, people that work behind the scenes, everything. Everything is to be appreciated, because as you can imagine, right now, we don't do that at all now, because we just can't get back to where we were based on this pandemic. So I'm so thankful that I had that amount of time, these amount of stories to tell based on what we used to do, and to be able to still tell those stories with affinity, love and affinity. It's amazing to reflect on what we really had, which was very, very special in the end of the day, and to have a drink to that was always something special, that we were able to connect in a way that we had some sort of our own kind of ritual to what we were doing.
Hey, Carl, just a quick question. So like, considering how much you play and you're traveling so much and you're playing so many gigs for so long, and now it's like pretty much no gigs at all, do you find yourself kind of having like a set schedule, like helping you health-wise? Does it feel good, or do you really miss kind of being back on the road?
You know what? I'm kind of conflicted between this scenario, to be honest, because ever since I was 13 years old, even when I wasn't DJing out, I was always going out. I was kind of big enough to get myself into nightclubs in my early days of late 70s into the 80s, of going into clubs and dancing to funk, soul, disco music at the time, and then getting to play at the time to my friends and certain events in my early days of creating certain house music parties, and house parties, not house music, house parties, and all this sort of stuff. I was very busy kind of doing that on the weekends. So I'm a consummate night owl. I've always been out every weekend, and I've always enjoyed, the weekend, celebrating the hard work that I've done in the week to get to the weekend. I'm going out, and that's kind of carried on in my career when things started to really happen for me, which was 88, 89, where now I'm DJing and working and going up and down the country in my car, driving up and down, and then Ian and other people with me to help me, do all these events, and then going over to Germany and then to Italy and into France, and then going back and forth on the planes, bang, 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 it just kind of grew exponentially, the embodiment of time that it took for me to get to all these places and do what we did. But the weekend was it. You know, what am I doing Thursday? What am I doing Friday? What am I doing Saturday? You know, scheduling was a big part of my kind of my work, embodiment of work, and what I needed to do for myself to enjoy, you know, celebrating life, sharing the love of music, everything. So that was always my focus and goal. You know, sharing music, going out, meeting new people. You know, I bought a car which cost like maybe £150, and it would get me to the gig and blow up, and I had to find another car to get myself home. All sorts of stories that I could tell you. But it was always for the weekend. You know, and then if we get to this point, you know, when I was literally in America. Doing a tour, a clubbish tour, and then on the roads to go into Ultra, and I did pass by. Where was I? So I kind of started in Mexico in February when I flew over. In fact, I started in LA first and played in LA, and then played at San Diego Cross Festival, and I was going across America. I was in Denver, Colorado, where I played there, which was great. So I was doing all these amazing events across America for the first time, Carl Cox. And I was reading the news about this pandemic may be possible, and this coronavirus. I'm like, okay, it's like the Ebola, it's like bird flu, it's like SARS. We'll get through everything. And I got to Washington, D.C., we got to Houston, Texas, and I'm playing that night. And it felt like this was going to be the last party that I was ever going to be doing until otherwise. Because Donald Trump was on the TV, he said, right, you know, we're closing the borders. If no one's coming into America, apart from the English can come to America for some reason. Like, well, that's a bit strange. You cut everyone out apart from the English. What's going on? Because I'm English and I'm here, so do I feel safe? Am I any safer because he said that? But meanwhile, it started. We had to get out, and I basically ended up here in Australia. So I had a choice of being in UK or Australia. Now the thing is, I had to come back to Australia anyway, because I got this event called Pure, which is our kind of like a very independent electronic techno event that we do around Australia. And at the time, you know, there was no social distancing, or there's no panic about pandemic or anything. So I thought, you know, if I come back to Australia, at least I could do my parties here at least, and then continue with my life. Well, as soon as I landed in Melbourne, a day later, after I landed in Melbourne, I had to self-isolate for 14 days for start in this very room. And by the way, people, we're still on lockdown. So from the time we got here, this is the very room I'm still in. It's been unbelievable. My career was kind of like, you know, took a kind of rise to the rise, and then I've gone along this plateau, and I've had a really good time, and I've met all you guys, I've played all your music, and I've met all these people, and I've done everything, and then in an instant like this, it's gone, phew. Yeah. I'm gone, yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing, I was talking with a friend today, and he was just asking me what I missed the most. I don't know if this is what I missed the most, but the first thing that sprung to my mind was that sense of movement. Like, we were always in motion. You know, we were always rushing to get to the airport, rushing to the gate, flying to the city, rushing to the hotel, sound check, dinner. And then the next day, the whole cycle would be repeated. And it was week in, week out for decades. You mentioned 40 years, you know, you were always moving forward, it seemed like. And then all of a sudden, literally overnight, everything just grinds to a halt. And I think a lot of us are still trying to process how we're feeling about that and how we're coping with it. But it's that sense of motion that I found lately I miss quite a bit, especially in, you know, the long travel that it took to get here, because there's so many limited options to us right now due to nobody flying. It took a really long time for me to get from DC to Barcelona, but I really, in some ways, enjoyed, you know, reconnecting with that motion. You know, that
interestingly enough, just for perspective though, I mean, This has happened to everybody in the world. Everyone in one way or the other, some more dramatic than others, of lives have just completely went from here to here. So it's like, I mean, it applies to us in one way, but it certainly applies to everybody around us, no matter what field of work you're in,
Yeah, I mean, the thing is for me is that I'm actually really enjoying the fact that I'm actually having a bit of a life based on normality, because my life has not been normal. It's not been normal at all anyway. But because of the plateau which I was able to create at that point it happened. I sit back and reflect on all that as great memories of what I used to do and how I used to do it, and how happy it made people by me doing it. And my drive has always been about sharing the music. It's never been driven by any other elements. A lot of people think, he just did it because he wanted to earn more money. He just wants more fame and
more cars.
58 years old. I mean, I don't need any more money. I don't need any more fame or anything. I just love doing what I do. It's clear. You can see any of my sets. I mean, all my streaming sets that I do now. I'm on my own. I'm on my own doing this. I don't even get paid most of the time, because there's no money, you know what I mean? But I still do it with the same vigor and passion and energy, because that's what I've always ever done. Now, one of the biggest things for me is that I do like cooking, and Ali knows that I like cooking and like eating food as well. But I do like cooking, and I always said every time I got back to Australia that I'm going to start my own Coxie vegetable patch. And I'm like, I'm too busy. I'm in the studio. I need some sleep. But now I've got the time. I said to myself, I've got time to do this. So I've got some parsley, thyme. I've got all sorts of, I've got leeks and I've got rosemary and broad beans and everything. So the revelation is I've got this Coxie vegetable patch. Normally I'd kill things because I'm not around to water them or even talk to them for whatever reason. But in the last couple of weeks, I'll be seeing some fruits of the labor. Now, I have this, my parsley plant started off quite small, a little bit of a bush. Now it's huge. And I'm thinking, what would I do with all this parsley? So this is what I did. I made a Cox's, it's a pesto. With parsley and chive, a little bit of cheese in it and everything. And I'm telling you, it's delicious, right? Yeah. Paul Newman, he used to have his sauces for, whatever, but he never made them. I made this, you know what I mean? So I'm not trying to sell anything to you because
are you selling this? I was just wondering, are you selling this?
I feel like
no, but I know
have your face on it like the Paul Newman labels.
Yeah, you need your face. Carl, like a friend of mine gave me during this lockdown period where I'm not really moving much. A friend of mine gave me a basil plant, and it got huge. She's like, just water it every day. Keep it in the sun and it'll be good to you. And it's massive, and there's nothing, and I started making pizzas and making pestos and things like that. That feeling of like cutting it from your own plant, and using it to cook with is something that I'd never really fully grasped until now. And it makes me want to have a garden, like you say, like plant a lot more.
And the thing is, there's no excuse anymore. It's not. I don't have any time for that. We have all the time for it. But what I've also learned is to have a balance of the time that we have at the moment. Because the thing is, I've got a writing studio here that I've had for years, and I sometimes kind of bypass going in there because I don't have time for that. Now, it's not even a writing studio anymore. I've got a full live DJ setup, which I've already gone live with my setup at Mysteryland's live stream about a month ago with my label ASW. And I've always wanted to do it. And I was like, too busy. I don't want to learn the programs. But now I'm in there every day back in the house. Now, my other studio, which I have to bubble to and have a permit to go to and back because we have a curfew, is where all the live streamings are done. But in that studio is where I do all my remixes and do all my kind of like streaming shows and everything that goes with that studio, and it's amazing. I love it. When I built it, I kind of built it just for shits and giggles. I was like, I'll get to it at some point. Now it's the most important place in my world because this is where I'm able to still get out my sets, my music, my feeling, especially with my Cabin Fever shows. And my Cabin Fever shows was based on lockdown. My records collection is here, over 150,000 pieces of them in Melbourne. And when I was sitting here, I was thinking, how do I do a live stream that's going to make it really interesting and not seem the same as everyone else? It was, which what I love about yours, Ali, was because you just came out and played dub reggae. It freaked people out. I'm just like, man, that's good. You know, I just want to roll a fat one, even though I don't smoke. I'm going to start, you know. But at the end of the day, that was fantastic what you done there. It was excellent. And I hope.
I realized that a lot of people they couldn't draw the line between the foundations of dub reggae and later the foundations of disco and house music and techno and dub techno and all that stuff. And I literally did the show in some ways to not only make people feel good during this lockdown, because reggae always made me feel good. It always made me feel better if I was in a funk. But like, you know, it feels like we need to educate a bit right now as well, because we can. You know, we have a captive audience and we don't have to worry about clearing any dance floor. So we can play what we want. And if somebody tunes in, great. If nobody tunes in, that's fine. We're still beaming our signal out to the world. But you mentioned earlier, like you mentioned balance. Like how, I know you spend a few months of the year, I don't know how many, maybe 3 or 4 months of the year in Melbourne, 5 months in Melbourne, where you're not gigging, right? You're not doing anything musical. Maybe you're in the studio or whatever, but you're not in that cycle of relentless gigging. Then you come out to Europe and the States or whatever, and you're gigging hardcore nonstop. When did you arrive at that? Because it's not anything we, you know, any of us here think about. Like, all right, I'm going to take 5 months off intentionally, and then I'm going to spend the rest of the time, you know, playing as many shows as I can. Like, how did you, when did that happen? Like, did that happen naturally or?
Yeah, 2000, I think 2002, 2003, I took time off initially and I was going to Phuket in Thailand, and Sven Veit invited me to go there and enjoy what he was enjoying. It's a very beautiful hotel, Amampuri Hotel, very expensive. So I stayed at the Chedi, which is a bit further down. That made more sense to me. And then go and visit everyone at the Amampuri. Didn't need to be there. It's like when I first went to the Amampuri,
from your hotel.
I went there on my own, you know, no girlfriend at the time. I just thought I need time off for everybody. I went to the Amampuri. 2 weeks I was there, and I was very chilled, zen, meditated, even did a bit of yoga. I was like, oh, yoga, right, okay. But I love Thai food. I just love it. Thai food in Thailand was heaven for me. But you know, but what a place, Thailand. I just really enjoyed it. But my first bill for 2 weeks at the Amampuri, I went to go and check out. I said, a lovely time. It's fantastic. And I had my MX card at the time. I had a black MX card at the time. Don't have it anymore. And Rick said, oh, here's your bill, sir. Hope you enjoyed yourself. I said, yeah, it's been lovely. I really loved the food, everything. It's very nice. I'll be back, kind of thing, you know. And they said, oh, and here's your bill, you know. And it felt like it had like a toilet paper, and it was on one end of it, and you just go like that with the roll, and the expenses. Oh, and this. It came to like $30,000. I'm thinking, I didn't have that much out in the minibar. It's like, what? I was like, okay. I went a few more years after that, but I stayed at the Chedi. But I thought to myself, you know what? I liked having this time off, but I can't justify this. So I've always enjoyed going to Australia because at that particular time, it's the summer. My friend of mine, Eric Powell, who lives in the same area as me where I live now in the Mornington Peninsula, he showed me what it was like to be on the peninsula, because every time I came to Melbourne, I always stayed in St Kilda, which was great. But the peninsula is like a lifestyle choice. It's a different kind of zen. It's, you know, you kind of, Ali, you've been there, you know what it's like. It feels good to be here and just to kind of just be normal at the end of the day. No one at the moment now. And I was able to justify me basically being here at this time. And then, but when I did basically buy the house and I moved here, there was no furniture or anything. It was just me and a whole bunch of room. And I was like, have I done the right thing? You know, all my friends in Amampori hanging out and enjoying themselves. And I'm in this big house on my own. I'm like, this is going to test, you know, where I'm at in my life, you know. And I just found that having that time away gave me the strength to go back into the arena in the end of the day. So I have to make this work in some ways. And not only that, when people do come to Australia, they have a home to visit if they choose to come and see me. And which a lot of DJs do, and they still do today.
I'm sure during that period of time where you're there and not gigging, you're getting crazy offers. Your agent every day is saying, Carl, we have this crazy tour. They're offering crazy money. You got to do it. You're crazy to turn down this opportunity. And how did you keep yourself from, you know, falling prey to that and ending up back into that, you know, constant routine of year-round touring?
Yeah, I think you got to basically weigh up the pits and wayfalls of all of that. I mean, the thing is, you can have as much money in the world, but if you keel over, you can't take it with you. So it's whatever you're going to be doing it cannot be driven by the offers. And believe me, the offers are there in spades if I want to do it. And I don't want to do it. I want to live. I want to enjoy myself. I want to be able to make pesto. I know it's as simple and as you could go and buy it in the shop at any moment, but there's something really satisfying about the smaller things in life that actually matter. Because me sitting here today, and I know this is going to be a bit of a sad story for you guys and probably people that are at home, you know, watching this or listening to this, but the very chair that I'm sitting in and the very screen that I'm looking at, I had to basically watch my father's funeral because he passed away 2 months ago due to Alzheimer's disease and dementia. And I was to watch him, you know, slowly but surely lose his mind and basically not know what's going on around him. And I went to go and see him over Christmas physically before this all started. So I left Australia, went to Barbados, saw him. I could see he wasn't that well, but meanwhile he was a bit of a fighter. He, since December all the way through until end of June, July, he stayed alive all the way through that point. And I'm thinking to myself, I really need to get back to see him before he actually really goes. But because of this pandemic and not being able to move around or anything and COVID-19, it didn't allow me to even go into Barbados, even if I wanted to, because they also shut down their borders as well. So I never thought in my life that I'll be watching my father's funeral on YouTube, clicking in, watching this happen in front of me. Now, the thing is, no amount of gigs or no amount of money or fame or adulation is going to make you really realize, understand that your life, really, end of the day, is very valuable. Your life, what you do with it. And what I don't want to do with it is waste any more time by me flying around, going crazy and doing mad things based on where you are in your life at the end of the day. And time is very precious. So I want to do the things that I haven't been able to do for many, many years. And it's to keep in contact with my family and friends a lot more than I should have done. But able to do the things that I like to do. I like riding motorbikes, as you know, Ali. I like racing cars. I like being involved in the motorcycle industry. That kind of thing makes me feel really happy. I do like going and being adventurous and visit the countries and places that I've been to and to enjoy the country. I mean, I've been to Peru. I don't even know what's outside the hotel room. All these kind of things that I think is really important. And it's been a lot of soul searching by me being here at the moment with everything. It's the reason, one of the things that's kept me sane for all of it is my Cabin Fever shows, because I can reflect on my history of my life of music through vinyl on every single show. Even the show that I've done this week already is an ode to Soma Records from 001 until present day, and to go through their collection of music that I've been collecting over the years, and to lay that down as a format of vinyl mixing of the music that they've put out, which is just mind-blowing. And so that's been my release, that's been my balance, that's what I've been doing. If we do get that back out and we do get back to the dance floor, as we all know, it's going to be a very different place in the end. Have I had my time and I've done what I've done up to this point and had a really great time doing it? Maybe, I don't know. But if I ever do go back out again, it's because I want to be there. It's because I want to be able to continue my quest of a DJ or a producer, and as a person that is able to still share the love of music is the reason why I did this in the first place.
Much respect for that, man.
And that's my drive. That's my only drive. I've got no. Otherwise, I'll just stop tomorrow and go. I'm done. I've had a good time. I'll carry on, growing my vegetables. I'll carry on doing my techno sets in my room and making new music and stuff, which I've been doing. I've worked probably as hard still doing all of these shows by being in this very spot than me actually going out and reaching out to the rest of the world in a live situation. If this is the way it's going, and then I want to also embrace this way of life as well, and no problem. I mean, I want to do a remix on every single one of you guys' records at some point. I'd love to get to do that because all the time, I'm too busy. I don't have time for your loops and samples. Or, yes, I do have a time for your loops and samples. Christopher Ali, actually, because I didn't realize that you was actually seriously black underneath, and now I get it based on your name and your sound. Would you consider doing a remix on a track that Eric Powell has made called Soul Rebel? It's a beautiful reggae-ish kind of lovers rock type sound.
Somebody to do a remix like publicly like this, because how can I say no? Of course I would.
You can't say no. You got to say yes. Come on, I will do it. Aya. I think a Dubfire remix of this song would be awesome.
Carl, like you mentioned being, you've somehow, I don't know, I think everyone's wondering what your secret is. You've remained more relevant than ever 40 years in to your career. And you've been there from the beginning. What is your secret? How have you managed to do that when so many others have failed?
Yeah, I mean, if I told you, I have to kill you. I don't know. I think it's probably the way how I grew up with my family, my mum and dad, because my mum and dad are not here anymore, unfortunately.
You're for many people that don't know, you're from Barbados.
So my family are from Barbados. They came over from West Indies, from Barbados to the UK in the late 50s. And both of them came over to work in the services. So my mum worked for the NHS. She was a midwife, and she did that until she passed. And my father was a bus driver in South London in a place called Tooting and Putney Bridge station where he used to work. So they were very hardworking people with values, but they always had this Caribbean thing about them, the happiness about who they are as people, and they always shared their life, no matter how much they had or didn't have. They always shared their life, and I think a lot of it stems from that kind of upbringing and ideal and how you treated other people at the end of the day, because we were like a minority race in the UK in the 60s, especially my family coming over from Barbados, and then basically living in more of a white community or a white society as people. And don't forget, I was born in Manchester, so I'm English as they come at the end of the day, without a Manc accent. I'm not sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm as English as they come, and I have these Barbadian roots, and I have this English roots of my existence. So, and I had to basically have the same type of work ethic in the end of the day based on where I am now. I mean, I never just DJ'd. I never just just done a couple of gigs and I made it. I was working really hard in the building industry. I was a plasterer's mate. I was working on the tools for scaffolding. I was always laboring. I was always working hard, but at the same time, with the money that I had, I would go and buy the records and go and buy the tunes, go and buy the equipment to go and to do a lot of these events at, which I actually, at one point in my life, I had a massive sound system and I was DJing, and the sound system was getting more work than me as a DJ. So what did I do? Got rid of the sound system. And by the time we doing that, and then people then started to take note of me as a DJ. But all of this took years and years and years to get to this point. But the ethics of my family, I think, has been the thing that has got me where I am. Because I've always said, by playing to people, in the end of the day, it's fantastic. If you get paid to do that, it's a bonus. It's something on top of something that you're giving to somebody. And if they want to pay for you to DJ, and they're happy by it, and then there's your answer to longevity. Because at the end of the day, there was no goal set for me to be successful. There was no rule book. There was no template based on the road to where we've ended up. I mean, there is now, you can go online and go, how to be a DJ, and there's a million people telling you how to do it. Not that everyone does very well by that at the end of the day, because you've got to have the heart and the soul and the spirit for where it comes from. If you don't have this, it's not going to happen. I mean, the thing is, after all of this pandemic and the way how things have happened, I mean, if I was just chasing a dream and I'm not number one in Beatport anymore, and I don't have so many followers anymore, and this, that, and the other, and I don't know what to do with myself now because I used to be a big DJ and now I'm not. And then we wouldn't be having this conversation. I wouldn't want to know anything about it. But I'm having this conversation because it's important. Because I still love doing what I do. I'm exactly the same person with exactly the same energy, with nobody around me than I am when I have 50,000 people in front of me. So the secret to success is you got to do it because you love it, and that's it. There's nothing more to it.
And it's part of. Sorry, Matt, go
I
in.
was going to ask. I wanted to take you back. Well, go back to your early days, and maybe you can sort of talk about. I want to know what was the first club you played in, and how come you ended up playing at Stearns? And because I mean that's not in South London, that's on the South Coast. And how did you end up becoming, being a resident there?
Yeah, well, the thing was, I was living in Brighton at the time, so I was considered as a South Coast DJ. I basically went to Brighton around about 1985, 84, 85. And my actual mum and dad, they left the UK to go back to Barbados. So we were basically left to fend for ourselves, myself, my sister Pamela, and my other sister Andrea. And I decided to move to Brighton because I felt that being in South London at the time, that I couldn't further my career by where I was, and I wanted to be challenged at the end of the day by uprooting. So by going into Brighton, it gave me a complete clean slate. If anyone wanted to hear a Carl Cox set in any way, shape, or form, at any shebeens that we used to do and some kind of parties we did at all these venues, you'd have to get on the train from South London and come to Brighton if you want to hear me play. But all the people in Brighton were like, wow, Carl's here, so what do we do with him? I used to do student parties for £20 a night in a club called Toppers and another club called Rumours. And I used to play Peter Gabriel. I used to play all these kind of like Euro trash records, which had nothing to do with funk, soul, or techno at all. Just the fact that I was actually out there playing music to people that wanted to hear it. And these places would be packed full of like EF students. And I'm playing a bit of funk and a bit of soul in there as well. And that's how I started cutting my teeth by playing in the clubs. But from 85, 86, 87, 88, I started doing a lot of my events in Brighton and around. And then 88 comes along, and then this event comes up in Worthing, in Stearns, and a guy that's passed also now called Mensa and his crew in Worthing. They knew that I was playing house music and I had an embodiment of techno records and that type of music at the time. And at that time also, I was making a big name for myself. So it was all perfect. The moon and the stars aligned when I played at Stearns. But it was just a venue. We had 3 floors. You go in the top floor. They had a kind of like a top floor of DJs playing music there. Then you go in the middle floor, and it had a different kind of alternative sound going in. I don't know what it was. It was a bit more slower beats, but it was interesting. And downstairs in the basement was the room of doom. It was just going off acid house, techno, breakbeat, rave. It was just hot, sweaty. And the thing is, this club became seminal. Yeah. Seminal club in the country, of one of the top clubs in the country. Stearns in work.
Did you go? I never went, but it was legendary. I mean, I went to the Escape. I went to Zap. I was living in. I mean, I grew up in South London as well, Carl. I'm from Catford, from Lewisham, and I actually ended up living in Brighton. But back in the early '90s or late, yeah. I mean, it was like a legendary. It was like this thing that was happening.
It was crazy. It took over the Zap Club. It took over Savannah. It took over anything that happened on the South Coast. It was Stearns in Worthing, and another club called the Empire, actually, down in Portsmouth. And in fact, the South Coast was kicking it. It was getting people from Liverpool and Manchester and Leicester and coming to the South Coast. And what was really good about the South Coast was that you made a weekend of it, because you're coming to the seaside, even though the sun was never there. It could have been rained half the time. It's kind of where Drum Cell is at the moment in Santa Barbara. If he looks over the balcony, that was the beautiful summer's day, for us, with rain, by the way. But the idea of getting out of the city and going to the coast was brilliant. And if you had a night like that, it was a Friday night as well. It was it was off kilter. But I was really proud and happy to be a big part of that at that time. I was making a little bit of music at home on my little Tascam I had at the time, and my little tape recorder Tascam that I used to use, and
16-track recorders
on that. Yeah, it was pure early days.
At what point in your career did DJing become more than a hobby? Like, when did it become a career? What was there a specific moment that you turned around and you said to yourself, you know what, I could just do this full time and I could make a good living at it, and I love what I do, and people love it too, and they're paying me money, and I can support myself, and my parents are happy I can support myself? And like, when was that point for you? So
1985, I had a little sound system and some rope lights and some lights. So I was basically mobile DJing at the time on the weekends to earn a little bit of money, cut myself on DJing and DJing to people with no perspective, just the fact that I had top 40 hit records that I could put together and make people happy by them. Was 1985, I went self-employed as a DJ. Now here's the thing. I basically got funded by the Prince's Trust at the time. So Prince Philip decided that he wanted to help young businesses start and grow. So if I was a hairdresser, here's £1,000. If I was a baker, here's £1,000. If I was basically arranging flowers, here's £1,000. I'm a self-employed DJ that has the equipment already, and I want to make it and turn it into some sort of business. And then I had to show that I could get £1,000 or had £1,000 worth of equipment, but this will make you eligible to be able to get the grant. And I was able to do that. So here's £1,000. So that's how it started. It started in 1985 as a mobile disco that I basically used that £1,000. I put it into a directory called the Yellow Pages, and I had my business card. It was called Astral Disco. And Astral Disco was the name came out because it was basically a pot of cream that I used to put on my hands because I had dry skin, and at the time, and Astral was the cream that did it. And I thought that's what I'm going to call my disco, Astral Disco, and it was the best in funk, soul, and top 40 hit records, and my phone was ringing off the hook for some reason, so what I did was I also put in a job center or a small little card for other mobile discos to come on board to see if I could get them events as well, because I couldn't take them all on. So I was actually managing other mobile discos with events that I couldn't do to them, and then created this little kind of management company for other young guys that were doing this. So I had to do, it was quite funny because there had to be a certain level of DJ to go into doing these events, because I couldn't let them go into an event and they'd be absolutely rubbish. So I had to vet them. So I get them to set their thing up in their house, whatever. I go over their house to see how they would perform. And some of them were terrible. I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't book you. You've got the flashy tie, with the lights going around and stuff. And anyway, oh, hey, and then this guy, and we're going to take you to the top and all this, being over exuberant. I'm like, no. Natural, play your music, get yourself out there, nice sound system, good presentation. And I was doing really well at that because I was taking a percentage of money that they were earning based on the gigs that they were getting when they wasn't getting any events, but through me. So I did that for 10 years.
What else did you do during that time? Were you a student?
So I was always working as a builder on a building trade. I was always in the week working very hard doing that, and then the weekends would be 2 or 3 events on the weekend. I kind of set my goal at the time was to earn £60 per event. So if I did 2 parties on that night, it would be £120 that weekend. And then you take out your food, your drink, and your fuel, which then went down to at least £80 or 70, and then for breakages and all that sort of stuff, and then buy records and whatever. But I found that if I stayed on this path, I could make it. So it got to a point when I stopped doing the mobile discos, and I was like, right, I'm going to do this absolutely 100% full time. And when I said I'm going to do that, my money that I was earning from the building trade just went wee, and my mobile disco was like, okay, this is going to be a slow climb. Like, but that's how I did it. It took years and years and years to do that.
I was wondering, I mean, coming from like an immigrant family that moved to the UK, how supportive were your parents of like taking on this career as a DJ?
They didn't support me at all. They just said, get your hair cut and get a proper job, okay? Because this ain't going to work for you. I mean, my mum, she's beautiful. She was like, don't listen to your father. They said, if you want to buy a sound system, I help you buy a sound system. And she did. So she used to have a mail-order catalog called Freeman's, and in there was a disco unit with 2 decks and a mixer all built in, and 2 cabinets of 2 12-inch speakers called Fanes, and it's 200 watts a side stereo. Woohoo!
That's funny. I asked that because it seems like something that a lot of DJs who come from families who immigrate to another country seem to have in common, where you have this like kind of hard work ethic thing, and then once you get into the career of being a DJ or musician of any sort, there's always a following of criticism with that, you know?
Oh yeah, you're completely right. And my dad, I mean, I fell out of my dad because of it. He kicked me out of the house because I was making too much noise, getting rid of these records. But he was the one that started it. You know, I'd be at home, I'd be up in my room upstairs, in my room, at 9 years old, and he'd be downstairs with his mates drinking and smoking and doing whatever, dancing to James Brown, Get Up Off of That Thing, and them screaming because they're having such a good time. How could I go to sleep when that's going on? So I used to come downstairs and then watch them all having a good time. And my dad was like, well, if you're not going to go and sleep, put these records on. Yeah. That's how it started.
Amazing.
That's awesome. Well, your parents have unfortunately passed on, but did they ever see you in action? And did you ever have a moment when they were there watching you at the height of your career, doing your thing? Was there a look that was exchanged, or was there hugs, or some moment of I don't know? Like,
another good question.
Son, you know, like you followed your dreams, and you know.
Yeah, no, but before my mum passed, I actually played in Barbados. It was at least about 10 years ago, and it's actually with Nicole Moldova. She was there with me as well, and she played at the same event that I played at a club called Sugar. So my mum and her friends wanted to come down and to hear, you know, Carl Cox's son play music, you know, and we want to see what it's all about, you know. I don't understand. So we had a little VIP area for my mum. You know, she was 71 at the time, and all of her friends were a little bit younger than her, but they liked to go out and enjoy themselves. It was amazing. So they turned up. The party was really good. It's kind of open air, the club, which is quite nice to get a bit of a breeze. And I could see my mum, and I kept going over to make sure they were okay. So Nicole's playing, she's playing her sound. It was really cool. And I'm just sitting there with my mum and her friends. I'm just like, this is really weird, but cool at the same time, you know, that she got to see the fruits of her labor of supporting her son, and knowing that I did really well out of what I basically took the ball and run with it. But I went to go on and I played my music, and I played a little bit of, you know, island music as well. I didn't go too crazy with the techno music or whatever. I just wanted to play really good, feel good music, which I did. And I could see my mum and her friends getting up and dancing, and I'm thinking, Mum, don't move too much. You're going to break her hip. You know what I mean? And she's so proud that she didn't care. She was just like, that's my son. That's my son, you know. And I'm playing away. I'm almost in tears. And I'm playing a record, I think, Shy FX, Raver. I went into drum and bass, and I played, and in the lyrics it's going, I want to be a raver, do the Shy FX. My mum's like, yeah, man, yeah, raver. I'm just like, oh my God, this is amazing. And at the end of the night, she was in tears, and I was loving the fact that she really enjoyed it. And unfortunately, we were walking back to the green room backstage, and they had these steps that wasn't quite lit up, and she fell off the steps and she ended up on the floor. I had to kind of pick her up, and she nearly did break her hip, but she didn't care. You know, in the end of the day, she enjoyed the moment of that. Unfortunately, my dad was going through dementia, and he knew of my success, but he never really, he kind of in his way said, yeah, I'm sorry, son, you know, I'm glad you followed your path. But it was hard for him because he's a very proud man. But you could see it in his eyes that he was very proud. So he had that moment also by coming to Australia, and we had a Cox family gathering in 2005 before we all kind of went our own ways. So my dad got to see, you know, where I ended up, and my mum obviously got to see where I ended up when I was playing. But it's a great question, that one. Yeah.
Wow.
Between those times of the mobile disco and going to Ultimate Bass, your first Ultimate Bass nights on Thursdays in London, give us a little bit of that time frame.
I mean,
and what I'm curious about also meeting the first other international DJs, like meeting Laurent and everyone else, like, because your first time would meet people from other countries that basically did the same thing as you did, grew up the same way as you did. It's all different today because there's DJs everywhere, but back in these days, it was like not that many, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, the thing was about Ultimate Bass and the sound of Ultimate Bass. I mean, it was based on a collective of people. I had a management company at the time called Ultimate Music Management, of which we had DJs that I had signed at the time, which was Josh Wink, was my early signing, Laurent Garnier, Colin Dale,
Masters, right?
I had quite a few amazing DJs signed at the time to the management company. And I set up the management company was because years before that, I would pick up the phone and say, yeah, I'll play for you for £200 or whatever, go to the event, and then the promoter would say, oh yeah, it was 100. I said, no, it's 200. And I'm only paying you 100 tonight. And that was it. It was problematic. And then my name was on all these different flyers, and I wasn't booked to play at any of these events. I said, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. You either have a license to do this event, and then I basically will send you out a contract, one piece of paper that I would say, you know, we agreed this, and at that time I'll play blah, blah, blah. And then that would give me the ability to have some sort of order what was going on, because it was getting crazy. And all the other DJs were also suffering from the same situation. So joining Ultimate Music Management gave them the security to be able to be represented in a way that the promoter then had to basically stand up by what they had agreed to do. So that's how it started. But the music I was playing at the time was early rave, breakbeat, early techno, trance, underground techno, pure techno, whatever you call it. It was the sound, you know. And we never had a home for any of this music in the UK at the time. So we decided, myself and Jim Masters, that was also running his night called Open at the Ministry of Sound. I said to Jim, why don't we create this night in London on a Thursday where there was nothing going on hardly, and then eventually, you know, invite international DJs to come and play, kind of the same as what Universe had done, and Tribal Gathering had done for, you know, the DJs in Germany coming in and playing their sound to people in the UK. So we just did it on a very smaller scale to them. But it was amazing to have, you know, the likes of Swen and Jeff play for us, Jeff Mills and Pascal Feos, and God rest his soul. And a whole abundance of all these amazing DJs. And their sound was fantastic. And me and Jim would just be semi-drunk, you know, on vodkas and that. You know, oh, this is great, check this out. You know, all the people that we revered were playing for us for little money, £150. We paid for the flights and accommodation. It wasn't about money, never was. It's just about the reason why we're doing this. And then I would take what we did, the Ultimate Bass, back to France or to Germany or to Italy, and we had this kind of back and forth. Now the thing is about Ultimate Bass, when we started, we used to charge £3 for students. If you had a student card, it'd be £3, or £5 if you was coming and paying on the door. That's not a lot of money to hear Jeff Mills play. You know what I mean? It was incredible.
Velvet Underground, wasn't it? This club?
Velvet Underground, yeah. So it's Nicky Holloway's.
It's a tiny club. What is it, like 250 capacity, 300 max?
I used to go see you play all the time. Like I remember.
Yeah,
whenever I was
smallest club in the world with the biggest sound system and the biggest heart. Had a Thunder Ridge sound system which was installed in at the end at the time, Mr. C's club and Leon Bushwhackers club at the time, and we had that Thunder Ridge in there, and it was hot, sweaty, and pumping. We did that for 7 years. Me, Jim Masters, and Trevor Rockcliffe as residents, and the amount of DJs that came through and the sound and everything was brilliant. It just set us up in our way of our music and what we stood for. And if you've got people out on a Thursday night, it's because they wanted to be there. It wasn't like, we'll see what's going on. We're going because Ken Ishii's playing. Okay? So when Ken Ishii come and played, there was no English people in the club. It was all Japanese because they all came in early. And they all got in early. So all the English people are outside in the rain going, we come every week. You got to let us in. We can't. It's packed for the Japanese, people with their good cameras and that. With Ken Ishii's playing, it was amazing to see how the transformation of all of this used to happen. We had a queue outside the door all the time, and it made people want to come in because they're more curious about the club. And the only reason why it finished because there was a company that bought the whole block and they wanted to make some flats out of it. So it was done. But since then I carried on a residency in Ibiza after that. So I kind of came out of Ultimate Bass and then started my Tuesday nights in Ibiza as a resident DJ. And that's the only two residencies I've ever had: Ultimate Bass, Space Ibiza.
Carl, can you tell us about? I mean, I used to go to Universe and these huge raves as a kid. As a young man, as a raver. I mean, these were to me like dance music. In the early 90s in the UK was huge. It was massive, like it was in the charts with bands like Shaman or, like there was so much, it was everywhere. And these gigs, I mean, they were huge, weren't they? I mean, there were tens of thousands, then you had all the illegal ones before that. But it was, I don't know, when people say dance music is big now, I always think it was bigger in the 90s because it was in the pop charts as well,
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, when something is popular, is it underground? Is it overground? Who knows? I mean, at the end of the day, I remember being at Universe, Tribal Gathering, and listening to Jeff Mills play. Like from record one until he finished, he had it's a tent of about 15,000 people, just going mad on everything he did, and most of it was distorted. So it kind of gave it even more of an energy to his sound because it was like it was just unbelievable. And then on another side, he had DJ Dag playing, or he had Mark Spoon playing, and then he had Laurent Garnier playing. Then he had Orbital going live. He had Left Field over there, and then somewhere on the line he got Kraftwerk. Then I come in with my breakbeat sound. It was madness. Those the things about Tribal Gathering and what Universe have done. They did it correctly. They paid people. They billed people correctly. They marketed really well. They made sure that they put themselves on the map based on their professionalism, and that's what got them to where they are. And I was very, very much a big part of that in the success of being a headline DJ. So that was kind of the marker of where events ended up where they are now today. And the Universe was definitely one of those, and Tribal Gathering was definitely one of those things. Because when you bought your ticket and you went in, you had all of this musical playground to go. But all the artists, if you see any of the Universe or Tribal Gathering posters, all the artists you see on there were all of a certain level. Even the smaller ones were of a certain level, which gave the essence to that event as a festival, as a proper event that you went into. And you didn't know half the DJs, but you came out and you knew the DJs you liked, and that's if it was a girl or a guy. In the end of the day, it didn't matter as long as they were bringing it, and then that was the event of what that was. At the end of the day, that's what it was all about, and I loved it. I was just reveling in it, and I used to have records, man. So Tribal Gathering would be like a mile in from the road in the middle of some dirty field in Oxford. Well, you've got your records you've got to carry through the mud. And you get there and you go, right, where's my tent? Because is it this one, that one, this one? Oh, that one over the back. Oh, right, okay. On the shoulder. And you get there and it was like, going mad. And that's what made it all worthwhile. Because when you went on, to get there was a nightmare. But when you went on, it made it all okay. It was just like, this is the moment of the reason why we do these things. And that's what I kind of missed, the essence of that. Of events and how you had to travel and how you had to get there. I mean, these days now you're getting in a very nice Vito Mercedes truck. You go directly to backstage and to where everything is, and you're playing here, Mr. Cox. Oh yeah, no problem. Boom, straight in, and you go on, and it's kind of like, okay, when they have a really great time. But back in the day, you really had to work hard to be able to get on and to be on time too, which was always so very difficult. But the fun we had was just incredible.
And did you go to Ibiza in the early days, even before you were playing? Did you go in the 80s?
Yeah. I went there in 1984 for the first time with my girlfriend Maxine Bradshaw and my sister Pamela, and
Wow.
I just wanted to go to Ibiza. I just want the clubs that I heard about, the people, the island, the food, everything. I just wanted to experience life outside of the UK. So I didn't go to any other Spanish kind of countries. Sorry, it's not country.
Destinations.
Destinations. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's still early in the morning for me, guys. You know what I mean? So,
No, wait a minute, Carl. You're clearly a night person. I don't rarely see anyone who's so energetic at 6:13 in the morning. It's amazing.
And I'm still going. And then I actually hired a Fiat Uno, a very tiny car, and to drive, from the airport to San Antonio. And for 2 nights, I stayed in the car. I couldn't afford to, take a hostel. But I soon found out that being in the car with your bloody girlfriend and your sister for 2 nights wasn't really good at all. So that was my introduction of being on Ibiza from the beginning. But I basically just visited the clubs. Went to Coup, went to Manhattan's at the time in San Antonio. Went to Star Club and which is now Chaos, which is now oh blimey, yeah, it is early in the morning. But anyway, I went to all these clubs and I loved it. For 2 years I never played at all. But the first time I really played in Ibiza was through Mensa, actually, from Stearns in 1991, and he did a Worthing Stearns Goes to Ibiza, and I was the headline DJ for that, and that's where it's really started to happen for me. When I went to the island and never looked back since then.
When's the first time you came to the States?
First time to the States was I was coming into New York for the music conference at that time. Yeah, and this was a mind blower for me, coming into New York, because all the time.
What year was this?
So Don't Laugh was just coming out with Josh Frink, because I signed Josh Frink to my
96.
So it's been 95, 96 was the first time I came to New York. Can you imagine that? Taking all this time to come to the States. It took a while because we were always busy working in Europe and up and down the country in the UK. That I said, right, one day we're gonna go overseas and play. So New York was the first time I came to New York, San Francisco. I have to say, in fact, San Francisco was probably the first time I come and played for Dave Dean. And me, I think Connie Favor played, Gordon the Edge, we played. We all actually flew over together on the Virgin Airlines. I remember that now very well. And then playing in Los Angeles eventually in the end. So I got to play to those 3 cities to begin with. And then I got signed to Moonshine Records after that, and then started to do a thing called Moonshine Over America.
I remember that.
Started to making my name through Steve Levy and his company at that time. I got to play some seriously backward places, and they didn't know what the hell techno music was all about at all.
What was your experience of the US in the 90s, in the mid 90s? I mean, what did you think about the scene then?
It was very difficult, because I was always playing a lot of music from the US into the UK and Europe. And I just found it very difficult that where all the music's coming from, there's hardly any scene for it, apart from the
This is what we talked about at the top of the show, where
exactly.
Said, like, majority of my gigs, the reason why I'm living half the year in Barcelona is because I needed a European hub, because the majority of my gigs are in Europe because of the dance music culture and its history. It's a rich history in Europe. And so it's interesting to hear your perspective on coming from all that was happening in Europe to the States, having played the music of all the Detroit artists, the New York artists, Chicago artists, and not really seeing what you thought, compared to what you were, experiencing in the UK and elsewhere, right?
Yeah.
I would, sorry, Carl, I would throw in part of the reason, maybe that is the drinking age in America. Was that part of the reason?
Well, no, because even like Mo can attest to this. Raving in the mid '90s, there was all ages raves that went all night.
Yeah, exactly.
So alcohol wasn't like it wasn't
Alcohol didn't really play a factor in that.
Yeah, people like tens of thousands of kids would be raving at like 13, 14 years old out till like 10 in the morning.
David, I get that, but I think there's still a little difference. Like growing up in Germany, you just had a lot of bars and clubs where you could go to, or in England, like when you're 15,
True.
16, 17, you just go there on a regular basis, and it was not that illegal event somewhere where you would need to go because you know some people who know some people who get you in there, you know?
I will say this. I mean, I don't want to get completely off the topic, and maybe I'm just saying my experience through my eyes, but I don't even think drinking was a big part of rave culture in the U.S., period. I mean, certainly taking pills and doing drugs was, but drinking wasn't really necessarily a priority.
Oh, I don't think that the drinking actually is the reason for it. It's just that you, because of the drinking age, you didn't have the locations in your local, in the city where you lived, where you could go on a Thursday night and just go out and be on a dance floor till 1 a.m.
That's possible.
That's true.
Right? Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt the whole thing. I'm going to get another beer.
No, I was just curious in hearing Carl's perspective of what he thought about what the rave scene in the U.S. was in the 90s. I mean, for us, it was incredible, but that's all that we had, you know? So.
Yeah, and the thing was, I mean, you know, I did the whole Moose Run Over America because it is important for Americans to understand that we appreciate the music that we got from the Americas. And also in the UK, we were influenced so much, we were making our own music going back to America. So I was kind of like that catalyst in the middle of everything, you know, understanding both sides of the story. But in the UK, we've having all these amazing, massive events. And in America, you wasn't at that particular time. And it was difficult because I think one of the biggest problems that you had in America at the time was exposure. Now the thing is, your exposure only really happened once he was able to have XFM. Once you started digital broadcasting, he was able to connect the states with the same music going out across all states. But if you didn't have that, you had regional radio. Most regional radios never played house techno music or underground or anything. It's all country music, middle of the road, you know, hip hop, obviously. That was the sound. So the exposure was very, very hard. I remember playing in Los Angeles, Groove Radio, and a guy called Swedish Eagle was always championing this music. And whatever DJs came over to America, you got to come through LA, get on the show with Swedish Eagle.
He actually still lives very close to me.
Yeah, and he I have a massive respect for him because he felt it, you know, at the end of the day, and he got it, and he got his view across. But he was just in an area, so he wasn't like the Pete Tong, you know, where he could basically, you know, as soon as Pete Tong speaks, the whole country listened. In America, you know, if LA speaks from a very independent, small point of view, and then only the people who want to know. Now we did a car park party where Swedish Eagle said, right, Carl Cox is playing live. He's going to be doing 3 turntables, and what we're going to broadcast, you know, to the people in the area, and we want you to come down in the car parks, tune in, and we can have a party in the car park. And I thought, nothing's going to happen here. Car park was full, doors are open, all the sound systems open. I'm DJing outside of a window with my music, and the lights are going, and the people are having a great time. I mean, that was social distancing event right there, you know, 30 years before.
Pioneering it.
Happening at the moment, right? And this happened. And that party, that whoever went and went to that party, they really had something special. And I knew that, you know, at the end of the day, in America, that things could become very, very special. But it took a while. It took a long, long time. Even the first Moose Run Over America tour lost a lot of money, but eventually things started to come back for them because they were the only ones that are championed in, you know, the events, the sound and music at that particular moment in time. But I was very much at the cusp of all of that.
Did you feel the need, like a lot of the, you know, the famous bands, the Stones, Beatles, Led Zeppelin, whatever, everybody, you know, in those bands felt the need to like break America. Okay, we've you know, made it to a degree here in the UK. We need to go, and if we can make it in America, then we're home. Like,
I think it's very difficult with that type of statement, because if you was a band, say like the Prodigy, for instance, they wanted to break America, and they knew they could, but they had to have a particular sound, have a rock element to the drive of the electronic sound of which they were known for. But they did it in the end of the day. They were able to do that. I think as a DJ, to try and break America from an independent point of view, I want to go and break America. Right? Okay. Good luck. Good luck with that. It was a very difficult. It's a difficult thing. You need to be part of a collective. When I was asked to play for Moby many years ago, and he did an event called Area 1 and Area 2, and so he used a collective of high-profile pop artists like Nelly Furtado, David Bowie at the time as well. He played for him, and Moby in his own right is a phenomenal artist. And then utilized and then on the dark side of it, it was myself, Paul Oakenfold, Liquid Todd, and there's quite a few other DJs from the UK, US, and as a collective, we went around and made these kind of like electronic festival events. And I thought Moby was very brave to do that at the end of the day, because he wanted to have that crossover culture between the two elements, and have these stadiums based on the rock element of breaking America, but also electronic ideal of sharing the music to people that were really interested in it at that time. But he found it very difficult as well, and in the sense of getting people to understand, because Moby was coming over to Europe and into England, and he was the king. When as soon as he made Moby go, and then he just went wee to the top, and he was a king everywhere. But back in the US, he wasn't so much of the king. He was just a guy, a vegan that enjoyed tea, and making electronic music.
Yeah.
You still enjoy, besides obviously your stage at Ultra has gone from strength to strength each year. It's a highlight, I'm sure, for you, but also for a lot of us that are fortunate enough to be asked to play. Besides Ultra, do you still get excited about playing in the States?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, my last tour was all about going back and doing an individual tour. Carl Cox is playing back in America without the pandemonium of festivals. It's the reason why I was doing clubs and inviting as many DJs as I could around it. I was going to be playing in New York at Avant Gardner, as you know, and that all didn't happen. And I invited Luigi Madonna to play, all sorts of people that I was trying to bring to the table based on me doing something which is outside the festivals, and then rode to Ultra at that particular time. And I never got there. It didn't happen. I had to turn around and go home, or turn around and come to Australia, and where I still am. But I've always loved it. I love being challenged. My road has never been easy at all. And I could have come back and just done festivals in America, but I said no. It almost was going to become a bus tour. But unfortunately, because the clubs are so small, the budget didn't allow us to have a bus at the time. So I just said, okay, I'll just take flights and to do it that way. And every party that I had done at that particular time was absolutely amazing. My last party was at a place called Stereo Live in Houston. I was only supposed to pay for 2 hours, and there's a local DJ playing and everything. And they said, oh, the night's open-ended, so you can, play as long as you like it. And I think to myself, well, this is going to be the last party. I'm going to play as long as I can. So I played for like 7 hours. I just went, I'm going on, can I keep going? And no one said anything. They were just having a great time. Now, the thing was, the club was packed for the first 3 hours. And then I was left with maybe 500 people at the end, just having a great time. And then I was able then to turn my music around even more so, and just go even deeper into my record collection and just play for them. Because if they're staying, I ain't going anywhere. And that's the best moment you can have in a club anyway. You got your tourists come down and take the pictures. Yeah, I heard Carl Cox. Yeah, 2 hours in, yeah, I'm going home. Oh, really? Okay. Well, I ain't going anywhere. I'm staying right here. And if you do stay here, you're going to get the full journey of the reason why I still do this. And that was my last memory of playing in America. I was playing at Houston and that long set.
And that's funny. It's quite typical of like the stateside crowd, is that like people show up kind of for a few hours and like party hard and then leave and go home early, versus like European crowds where they're just like they're in it for the whole night.
I think when
Yeah,
we
it's just
come
funny.
back out of this the situation that we're in right now, everyone's going to be in it for the whole night. No one's going home.
Yeah, after rage.
Yeah,
You're-
yeah, we're in trouble as artists now. It's like 2 hours, really?
Yeah.
There you go. Really, 2 hours?
Your stage at Ultra, I think, really helped spread the gospel of techno and underground music all over America, to literally every corner of America. So many people from all over the states were coming to Ultra, and they were coming to your stage. And you know, the owners, the organizers of Ultra were giving you sort of carte blanche to create, you know, the spectacle that we've all seen, you know, become more and more enhanced year after year. How did that relationship begin and develop? Like, they sort of gave you the keys to the kingdom at one of the biggest, you know, music events, you know, in all of America. Like, how did that happen? And, you know, how much do you value that responsibility?
Yeah, you know what? It nearly didn't happen. Me being involved in Ultra at that particular time, because they nearly didn't pick me up from the airport to go. From the hotel to go and play that event. Here's the story for you. So I'm at the Delano, and I'm with Lynn Cosgrave at the time, and a couple of other friends of mine around. And I'm playing at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So, you know, open air, super hot. You know, down at the beach and everything, and amphitheater. And I'm waiting to get picked up to go down there. And so it was around about, I think, 20 to 4. So I'm downstairs waiting. And they called up Lynn and they said, "Oh, we're going to be there in a minute. We're going to pick you up." And I'm saying, "Well, okay, well, you better hurry up, because what I don't want to do is rush all the way down there and then have to be, you know, scrambling to make sure that the sound's okay, this, that, and the other." But time was getting tight, you know. So anyway, so they sent this limo over, and it pulls up, and all these people are getting out of this limo, and half the people stuck in the limo. They said, "Oh, here's your ride." I'm like, "There's no room for anybody in here, and why do I want a limo? I just need a car for us to go down and we get ourselves in there." I said, "No, get them to send a town car, and get us down there." So time's ticking like this, you know, getting closer and closer. Anyway, I was with actually DJs at the time, and I'm not sure if a lot of you guys know DJs. He's an artist for Ovum, and he said, "Carl," he goes, "I can help you out, man." He goes, "I got my car's there. I'll get you in there." He goes, "If you get me in, we're going." I said, "Yep, 100%. We'll get you in. We're going." So we go off in his SUV, and we get to the gate, and I called the guys from Ultra, and I said, "Listen, you know, we're not in one of your cars, but we've got someone that's brought us in. You've got to just let us in." So we get to the gate, and as you can imagine, there's security everywhere, police, blah, blah. "Where are you going? This ain't a staff car, blah, blah." I said, "If we don't go in, I can't play, and then that'd be the end of it. I'll just turn around and go back to the hotel and just jump in the pool." And then I could hear over the radio, let him in. So G. Jules was like, "Yeah, man." And we go all the way to the stage and everything. And I get there, and it's super hot. The setup was quite loose. There's quite a lot of people there, you know, dancing. They had no cover or anything. And it was just like a bit shonky, actually. I was like, this is no main stage business. But anyway.
What year was that? What year?
So this was 2004, 3 or 2, 1, 99, 98. I think it was around about, it's got to be in there for 19. So it's 98, 99, I think, or 98.
Oh, wow. That early.
So it was very early, yeah. So that's what I'm saying. I never nearly didn't play, because I'm thinking, if these guys are treating me like this at this particular time, based on the time that I'm giving them, I'm not paying a lot of money, by the way. At the end of the day, I just wanted to pay to people in America that haven't heard this music and everything else that goes with it. And I get there, and this is what happened. So anyway, so I went on after DJ Dan had just played, and he was amazing. And I had my records, and I started playing, and in that 1 hour, the people lost their minds. They had a great time. And that was the very gig that saved them, because when they asked me about how it was, I told them how shit they were in the end of the day, and how they shouldn't be treating their artists at all. Because we give up so much of our time and energy and our passion and our belief to be able to be treated in the way that they want us to perform, you know, from the kind of stages which they got to in the end. So they said, well, what can we do to make up for this? I said, well, for sure, I want to be able to run a festival within a festival. So I need my own area so I can bring my people in and my sound and my DJs that I believe can give you what you need as an alternative to your main stage. And I will make sure that these people get treated properly. That's what I like to have. And they said, and this is Russell from Ultra, and he said, no problem. Where do we start? So our first arena was right on the beach in a white tent for about 1,500 people, maybe to 2,000. And that's how it started. Just very small, very humble. The lights, there was no LEDs, there's no confetti cannons, there were nothing. Good sound and great DJs, and that's how it started.
And you never felt like I don't want to be associated with like an EDM festival. You know, you felt like they were giving you an opportunity to establish something like a festival within a festival that eventually became the offshoot brand Resistance, correct?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because I wanted them to have their own identity as well as it just being Carl Cox Megastructure or Carl Cox and Friends or Carl Cox Arena, you know, because that's a lot of responsibility to hang on my buddy's shoulders. But at the end of the day, you know, I always had a Carl Cox and Friends concept anyway, and it was just all about that. Carl Cox and my friends performing. And it's just a nice, simple concept that I think people latched onto. But of course, when it got bigger and they had this, you know, again, they had this, you know, mega structure, it became the Carl Cox mega structure. I'm like, oh, okay, keep it down, boys. Meanwhile, we had to try and have that balance between, if you're walking into something, that it was a wonder. It was kind of like, you know, if you walked into Twilo in New York for the first time, you were blown away because of not the lighting system, but just the atmosphere and the sound. So we tried to recreate that within the embodiment of their festival with my arena, of which we grew up into. So it wasn't like, you know, day one Carl Cox Megastructure. It was day one Carl Cox in a tent that you hold weddings in. That's how it started. But I was quite happy to take that journey with them and to also take care of the music and the DJs that performed at Ultra. So it wasn't supposed to be like a battle between us and EDM. It's just the fact is that's what I'm involved in, and that's what I'll always be involved in. In the end of the day, that's got me where I am today, and stick by those values. And all the way through it, I've stuck by those values all the way. I never took the EDM stage. No need for me to do that. Because at the end of the day, this is what I love. I couldn't go on the EDM stage and play music I didn't believe in, I had no affinity with, and think that it was all good. Because for me, it's not all good. I have a passion for music. So my passion was always building a stage within the embodiment of that festival is one of the reasons why I believe that it became so successful, because as it grew and people's minds were also being expanded. And also, if you think about it, all the people that ended up on the EDM stage, after about 2 or 3 years, we're hearing more or less the same music all the time. So they wanted to know what was going on around the corner. So yeah, around the corner was Dubfire, Loco Dice, Marco Carola, you know, the list goes on, Nicole Moldova, and the list goes on in what we were doing in our arena. And I just loved it. And we started off only doing, I think it was Saturday, and then eventually we ended up doing Friday, and then eventually we ended up doing Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. One of my favorite, most mind-blowing times I have to tell you is with Laurent Garnier, because he refused to play Ultra. He said, God, Carl, you know, the Americans, they don't get it. You know, I play music and I cry and I'm not playing. I'm like, bloody hell, Laurent. I said, why? What's the problem? He goes, I don't want to go there to play for 2 hours. I'm like, okay, so how long do you want to play? He said, I want to do 5. I'm like, okay, we'll do 5. I said, you're going to start at the beginning and then being able to do your set. I don't care. I want to play. Me, Scanex, me. I'll bring the environment, red face, everything. So he came down, did 5-hour set. And it was the most mind-blowing 5-hour sets I've ever heard at Ultra. And the reason being is because Laurent took it from an essence, from nothing to something absolutely great and wonderful. And the American audience was just mind blown by it, because most of the music they were being listened to, they never heard before in their life. And even half the music he played, I never heard either. So that was the essence of Ultra. That was what the end of the day, was the foundations of the success of the Colcott's megastructure.
Wow.
Hey guys, I don't mean to interrupt, but I have my family coming back in the house, and I might have to jump off this call a little early. But Carl, it's been an immense pleasure to meet you, honestly, and have a chat with you, man.
All good, Mo.
Thank you. And anytime, man, if you want up for some Coxie remixes for no money, I don't give a shit. Just give me some parts, man.
Word.
I'm gonna take you up on that, man.
I'm so into it. I'm happy. I'm a happy man. You know, I'm able to get
so
to the
much.
machine to create something. But awesome to see you, man. Thank you.
Great pleasure.
Word.
Thanks, guys. Have a good chat, okay?
Bye, Mo.
Bye-bye, Mo.
Bye.
Carl,
Wow.
you did you were doing, I mean, talking about the success of the megastructure at Ultra, you were also doing space in Ibiza. Did that ever, in all the years, the 15 years you were doing it, right? 15, 16?
16 years in all, 16.
Years in all, yeah. Did it ever feel like a routine, or were you always excited and inspired week after week? And all the artists, great artists, you know, varied artists that were coming through, from Adam Freeland to James Lavelle to drum and bass, Ronnie Size, the techno artists. I mean, it was quite eclectic by Ibiza standards. Were you always inspired in the 16 years that you were doing it? And what was the end like?
Wow, I knew this question would be coming about my history of space.
I saw a video of you playing. I saw the very end. I mean, we all did, and it was quite emotional for all of us that were part of that journey. But what was that like for you? I mean, you were at the helm of this thing that was consistently for 16 years the highlight of everyone's season in Ibiza.
And please start at the beginning. Like, what was your first season? How did you get into that? How did you get the connection with space and with paper?
Yeah, so I mean, you got to go back before I started, because I was basically booked to play the opening parties at Space and the closing parties at Space. So for 4 years before I even started, I was already playing there. And Space was one of those clubs from when I first went to the island that I had aspirations at playing in. So it was kind of like almost a dream come true when I got asked to be a resident there, and to be able to have an opportunity to create my own moments of my history of being a DJ at that inimitable club. Now, the thing was, I think my first real event there was with when I had my release of my CD at the time, and the vinyl release at the time was Fact. And Fact album, which was released through React, they had a label party. James Horrocks had a label party at Space Terrace, and they had some DJs play inside the discotheque as well. So
Which year was that?
So that's 1996, 95, 96, when that came out, that Fact album. So we're going back to over 25 years ago of the release of Fact, and which became obviously quite popular and synonymous with techno music. And today I still represent that sound. But it was the opportunity for me to play at Space, opportunity for the management and Pepe to see me being able to control his club in such a way based on my music and my attitude towards that club. And so I kind of got approached, not straight away though, to do something there. So 1996, Eddie Gordon was running West End Productions for BBC Radio 1 with Pete Tong. And this is the first time where Radio 1 was basically going to Ibiza with their live broadcast from the clubs in Ibiza, Space included. But what they wanted to do is to have some sort of after party for all the staff and all the people that was involved in creating the after party, the event for people to go to and enjoy based on, you know, the British being there, BBC Radio 1, these artists, these sounds, this vibe. So they wanted to have the kind of like a little success party at Space in the terrace. But the terrace basically wasn't, it was just a terrace. It was DJs was DJing behind the bar. The sound system was just satellite speakers with one small couple of, you know, sub basses, no lighting, and that was it. So Eddie Gordon knows that, I'm the consummate mobile DJ, could set something up to turn it into something a little bit special. So I go there with Pepe and Fritz Pangratz at the time. And I said to him, okay, look, we're going to do this party. So I need some decks. I said, we'll use the decks from behind the bar. I'm like, okay, well, they're going to be full of booze and dust and shit. But anyway, we'll use them. We clean them up, we use them. And we've got some old mixer they had in the back. We clean that up and we use that. We plug them in. And then we got like a wallpaper paste table or type of wallpaper paste table to put those decks on. Because they didn't have no tables to put anything on. So we put them on at the back of the terrace. So if you go into the club on the right-hand side where the dance floor was, I put the tables there. Now, all the speaker system was facing outside of the dance floor of the terrace because everyone at the back in the day were lounging around and enjoying this, themselves lounging around in the sun. I said, well, I don't want anyone lounging around in the sun. Let's just turn these speakers around, and then we'll get them on the dance floor. We get a couple of sub basses in, and that's it. And then we need a backdrop. So we got a big flag of space and stuck that up with staples. And that was the backdrop for the terrace. And then 1,000 people turned up for that event. So they never had 1,000 people at the terrace. They never had 1,000 people in the club full stop because it was seen as an after-hours club and people came in sporadically and came in and went out, but they never at one time. So, of course, I got to play. Pete-Ton got to play. Some local DJs got to play. But it was phenomenal. And we started at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then we finished, I think it was like 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening. It never went round until 12 o'clock or until at the end of the day, it became the terrace. But that's how it started. Very simple, very honest. I mean, when 1,000 people turned up and the sound system, which was rubbish, and the wallpaper paste tables were bouncing and everything, that was back in the day. It was really, so the next year, Pepe built a DJ booth, got new turntables, new mixer, CD players, I think DJ 100s or something, more speakers, better lounge area, this sort of stuff. And then the terrace was born like that. And then since then, I was basically playing the terrace for a couple of years. And then I found myself that I couldn't play the music that I would really like to play. And the discotheque was suffering. So they asked me to basically, would I like to be a resident DJ at a space and start a night that we don't even have on a Tuesday. In fact, the first week, which we started in 2001, the first year, it was on a Thursday, and we didn't want to clash with Amnesia at the time, with Cream when I was there already. So we went to a Tuesday where there was nothing going on, and we started then. So that was the early days of Space at the beginning. And then it changed 2 years in, where Pepe decided to create another club within a club, which was another terrace, which was as big as the same size room as inside. Is the reason why we had definitive DJs, come and play as well, because we had the room to be able to do that.
That is crazy. So my takeaway from that is you were actually happy to be able to play at Space because that was the club that you really enjoyed going to when you were going there earlier. Because of your experience of a mobile disco DJ, you were able to set up a little setup there. And you end up becoming, when we look back in history, the biggest resident of that club ever, in hindsight, right? So that's like, let that sink in a little.
Yeah, it was, I couldn't believe it. I have to pinch myself. I mean, the thing is, when I started, it was a gamble, Tuesday night at Space in Ibiza was a roll of the dice, right? I wasn't, I mean, people knew who I was, but I wasn't Carl Cox, the king of Ibiza, the king of Space. I was just a guy that was enjoying sharing the love of music. But I had this opportunity. So when we started on a Tuesday, it went Thursday, and then 2002 we changed it to Tuesdays, and it was kind of like reinventing the night again, based on how we started. But I had a really great plethora of DJs around me, all of you included, most of you, I think. Yeah, and this was what was really amazing. I mean, the thing is for me was that I wasn't on my own with my quest of getting the music across to the people who wanted to listen to it. And also my dance floor wasn't just about British people. It was about everybody, whether you're coming from South Africa, in Amsterdam, Holland, where we come from, Germany, didn't matter where you come from. The dance floor was a melting pot from people from all over the world, which was great. Argentinians, and Mexicans. It was just people coming from all over the world. They treated it like their church. So this was great. This was great for me. But I made sure that every week that we had a great amount of DJs come in, but also that I played the very best I could. So I always played two nights in the one night. I'd always played my house music roots of playing at the terrace, of how we used to do back in the day when I set up the terrace, and then go in and then play 3 o'clock until close every season. So I always ended up doing 2 hours on the terrace. I mean, I had to be there an hour before, and then I'll go on and play 5 hours, starting at 3 until close at 8. Every season for 16 years. When we started, I thought to myself, we're going to have 5 years of this and we're done. We're going to have a really good time and it's over. 5 years came, we celebrated that, and we got more attention. Year 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It was 10 years. Okay, big celebration. That's going to be it. No problem. We'll just move on. Year 11 was bigger than ever. It was like, what's going on here? 12, 13, 14. Then only to be told space is going to be sold and, we're going to have the rug pulled under you, and that's the end of it. Nobody believed it at all. So 15, no problem. And it came to 16 when it was really going to happen. And then that was probably one of the saddest moments in my life in Clubland history, because to be involved in something for so long and for me not to be in any control about where it's going, apart from that it was closing, was very, very sad. It's hard to comprehend how you feel about what you do in life. People think this is blasé by what we do. Oh yeah, you just play records. Oh, that was a good mix. Oh, that was a bad mix. That was a terrible record. That's too hard. That's too soft. But all these moments are moments by what we create and how people enjoy by what we do. It's heartfelt. So can you imagine playing The Promised Land, Joe Smooth near the end, and having the whole place sing that back to you? Of a record that came out in 1988, by the way, which still sounds amazing still today, was unbelievable.
Did it feel like when you played that last song, that classic house song, did it feel like you came full circle, like to your roots? And did you take in that moment of like, wow, look at everything that I accomplished. Look at this room. Look at all the love in this room.
Yeah, it was such an emotional but an amazing time at the same time, because I've been able to be a part of that history myself as Carl Cox, not anyone else, and for the embodiment of the time I've been in that club, which was nearly 20 years. That's 20 years out of my life, dedicating my life and soul to that moment of realization by what I have actually done, and with my amazing crew and people and support from everyone around me. It left a really massive hole in my heart, but also a massive hole in Ibiza. Ibiza has never been the same since space has closed down, because it was hallowed ground for everybody. It was kind of like, you haven't been to Ibiza unless you've been to space. Well, it's not there anymore. And people can only surmise or remember what it was like. And we don't really want to harp on the old days, all the time, but it did stand for something. It wasn't a bottle service club. It wasn't like you book these DJs and people would come. It was experimental. It was gay. It was transsexual. It was lesbianism. It was flamboyancy. It was just life and times, by what we made and what we created, of which money can't buy that. We exude that ourselves, and as a collective, we really put that club on the map. And it didn't get all those accolades and awards for nothing. It got those awards because people who went there truly felt that they had a home, and it's been taken away from them, especially
were you ever afraid of failure? Because obviously if you start a new night in Ibiza, if it's successful, it's going to resonate globally for you. You're going to create a global brand as a result of the success that you have in Ibiza. On the same token, like if it's not a success, then globally you're seen sort of as a failure to some degree. A lot of people have found a way to maneuver out of those pitfalls. But were you ever like, what was your outlook on failure? Was failure just not an option? or were you one of these people that you thrive on the potential of failure? You use that or past failures, you use that as fuel to drive you and motivate you forward constantly, striving for perfection.
You know what? I felt that if we had this opportunity, it couldn't fail, because we had so many people that were supporting us. You know, DJs, producers, lighting guys, sound systems. Everybody wanted it to work really well. I mean, my night wasn't a consummate night. Actually, it was Sundays at Space was the biggest night, and then they had obviously they had the carry-ons as well, and Barbara Tucker, her night as well, and then he had Brasilio doing his nights there, La Troya, all this sort of stuff. So we were kind of like a merry band of what was going on at Space. But the thing was, I think the energy and the passion was too much. It was too strong for it not to fail. And for me, I mean, I've always tried to be as professional, as courteous, as giving as much as possible to anything that I put my hand to. And with what happened at Space, I think as a collective, it became what it was. But myself, no matter what, I still had to perform after every single top name DJ that ever graced that stage, as you know, and to basically still hold my own as an individual that had this opportunity to stand at that Space, to be the person that I ended up being at that club. It was difficult times, because I mean, we started on a Tuesday when there wasn't really much going on, and then all these different nights started happening on a Tuesday. But we had to stay strong on everything that we ever did, and not only that, we brought breakbeat to the table, by booking Goldie and Pendulum and all these guys. I mean, that should have failed. In fact, but it actually made the club much more diverse. We Charles P, completely diverse, and it was amazing. I mean, the Space was never able to do that in its way unless I was able to stay strong by what I was doing already, and to tap onto the rest of it with the extra room that we had, was to bring a bit of diversity to the club, which opened up the club even more so to people to come and enjoy. And then you find that people, I mean, I remember having Fatboy Slim playing in one room, which is crazy. And then in the other room, we had DJ Marky playing pure drum and bass. So, and that was packed. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, and the Sunset Terrace was just playing chill music and everyone's having a good time in there. It was absolutely bananas. But I've always loved the challenge. I've always been challenged, whether I'm challenged, within my motorsports, whether I'm challenged by making music, doing remixes. I mean, I took on the challenge of remixing Pomegranate, which is a track that I've just recently remixed with deadmau5 and the Neptunes. And I shouldn't have touched it with a barge pole, really, but I thought it's got some great elements in this track. Why not I just do a Carl Cox kind of take on this amazing track? And anyway, so I did it 128 BPM. I didn't care. I just think, okay, I'll just go. Because the track's like 110. It's like really like hip hoppy, chuggy. And I just like, no, sod that. Put the biggest kick drum I could think on it, and turned it into. I kept the song integrity, but I did this, and it came, and the way it came out was kind of like a Marmite moment. It's like, it's not techno, it's not underground, but it is. But it's hip hop, but it's by the Neptunes, and it's deadmau5. It's not his sound, but it is his sound. It's fantastic. I just kind of just threw it to the wall, But I liked it. I mean, was it successful? I don't know. Is it? Should it be? Doesn't matter. I think at the end of the day, the idea of doing it, actually going out there and just doing it, I think is the key to success. Just go out there and do it. Don't look back at the end of the day, but whatever you think, because I'm quite happy to do that mix. It was for no reason. I didn't get paid $1 million to do it. In fact, I've almost paid them for me to do it. But the thing was about it is that I did it, and I was quite happy to be able to go through the notion of the reason why I do things. And the same ethos was based on what I had done at Space. Just get out there, play this music, with your heart and soul, and hopefully that my energy draws everyone else to feel and do the same. And I think that's what made that club so successful.
So risk is the risk of failure.
Risk is the reward.
Yes.
Risk is the reward.
Yeah, risk is always there, and you're willing to take that gamble, Wow.
It's the reason why I play so hard. Some places. I mean, I look back at some of my early sets, and they were gabba, you know, like 170 BPM, dum 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 dum, you know. And then, you know, some people were like, well, why did you play that music? I said, well, because it was a journey I was going through, and my music was just getting harder and faster and harder and faster till it went into that point. Now I got to this point and said, do I really like it? Do I really want to be here? Well, up to that point, it was fantastic. But it was just getting into another dimension of which I wasn't enjoying. So I started slowing down the beats, and then I was getting back to my more techno, more funkier roots. And I think Chris could ascertain on your sound in your early days was pretty drummy, quite tough, but, you know, had a lot of energy and power in your music. But it gets to a point that even for yourself, you have to start rounding that sound off a little bit, because none of us are getting any younger. You know, my demographic of people that used to hear me play that music are not there anymore, and we've got a whole bunch of new people who are not interested in that music in such a way, because they're not exposed to it in the way that it was back in the day. So the risk is the reward. You know, drum and bass, hardcore, the rave music, everything that I've ever done was always about, you know, taking risks and crossing boundaries. But where I'm happiest is house music and techno music. That's my balance of where I'm happy, and I'll kind of risk and reward on all those elements, which I've always done.
Have you always used the microphone in addition to your DJing, or like, is that something that's rooted in your past as a mobile DJ? And whenever you do get on the microphone, is there a connection to your past somehow? Like, do you feel that young mobile DJ energy when you get on the microphone and you say, oh yes, oh yes? And when did oh yes become a thing, like doggone Pete Tong? Like, when did...
Well, Chris, he always laughs, you know, because when that's all he hears, you know what I mean? He's like, what are you saying, man? You know, I'm not saying, oh yes, it's simple, Chris. But it's when you're out in the crowd, you can hear it. When you're behind the DJ booth, it sounds like. But it always makes me smile, because, you know, he paid attention to the reaction to this. And another time with Chris, which was even funnier, was and this is why I love Chris, actually, because, you know, he's a good listener. He takes it all in, you know. And we was at Monegros one time. Remember this, Chris? And I was going on after Steve Aoki, and Chris stayed all the way through until the afternoon, right, just to see how I was going to follow him. That's it. And I'll get on to stage, and Chris goes, Carl, you know, I stay here because I'm so interested to see how he's going to follow Chris, Steve Aoki. And I'm like, thanks, man. I mean, you know, I'm going to follow him. The risk is the reward, right?
Right on.
So the thing is about the mic was that I felt in all my years of playing music that all the DJs that I played and live artists and that, no one said anything to the audience. And my DJ mobile discos was always about connecting with the audience with the mic, one way or another. And I felt that the humanistic side, or if that's a term, the human side of connecting with people is to communicate. So all I really wanted to find out from people, if they're happy to be here, I want to know. I'm happy to be here. But the thing is about the oh yes thing is that it could be interpreted in all languages in the end of the day. And the oh yes was you know, there's a thing called comic timing, and it's basically it's delivering the punchline. Now the punchline of oh yes is, you having a good time? Yeah. Carl Cox in the house? Yeah. Oh yes. But I've always got the bass out, and on the last yes, I go, oh yes, oh boom, yes, and bang, the energy comes in. And that's what people love. And that's what people, if I don't do it, they miss it. Sometimes I go through sets and don't do oh yes. And people get upset. They get on the keyboard. What's wrong with Carl? Is he ill? What's happening? You know, I love it when he says that. And I'm like, oh my God, it's actually stuck. So it's become my
your trademark.
But Carl, it's seriously, you're the only one who can pull that off. I mean, just imagine a time warp, yeah? And imagine every other DJ would take the microphone and talk. It would be the most cringeworthy time ever. but you can do it. Like it's because it's in your blood, because you grew up with this. I think that's like,
And
that's,
Sven,
you're the only one. Sven maybe a little.
Good
But it's
and louder.
different with Sven. Good
Like-
Laune.
there was a couple of years when I was touring with Sharam as Deep Dish, and for whatever reason, I think there was one gig where I got on the microphone just because I was drunk and I wanted to say something appropriate at the time, and everybody, the reaction was amazing. So Sharam kept pushing me for the rest of the tour and on to, you know, the following years to constantly get on the microphone. And what I found out, what I learned from my experience is it doesn't matter, you know, a lot of times what you say, as long as soon as they hear somebody speaking on a microphone, everybody stops what they're doing and they're just like, ah!
Oh my God, he said something. Ah!
There's something about, you know, just like, you know, when we're playing 909 rhythms on our push, you know, running sequences and doing fills and things like that. And it just cuts through whatever it is we're playing. It could be like 4 tracks on top of one another that we're playing. And when we're playing those 909 samples, it just cuts through all that. And speaking on the microphone, no matter what you're playing or how loud you're playing, it just cuts through all that. And it elicits a reaction, I found out. And it's great to found a thing, you know.
I think it matters how you deliver it, not what you deliver. What you deliver might as well be, but if you deliver it right, it's gonna go. People are gonna crazy.
Chris, is that how you heard it the first time Carl did it?
Well, because apparently I was always standing behind him. But Ian can second that. Ian is my witness.
Maybe we should kind of sing Ian's praises for a second there. Is Ian there, Carl?
No, he's gone to bed.
You have a very special relationship with Ian. How long have you guys been together? Ian's your tour manager, for those that don't know. And
30 years. I mean, he was obviously a very, very good friend. Obviously, as you can clearly see, not now, but you know, he's been here with me in this pandemic times. And
when's the book coming out? Like, you know, like the. Or Ian,
there is the book coming out, and funny enough, the book's called Oh Yes, Oh Yes. We've actually written the book before the pandemic, but we put a hold on it because the book isn't finished yet, because there's so much story to tell after I had finished it, into what happened afterwards with my family, where I'm at, the scene itself, what's going to happen in the future, blah blah blah. So it was going to come out in September at this particular time, and it's going to be in all record with bookstores and in airports and everything. And as you can imagine, no one's going to the store to buy anything, and there's no airports hardly open apart from the ones that you've been through, Ali. You know, to buy my book, it would be right now as a hardback as well as digital would be very difficult. So we're gonna hold off on releasing that book, because so many people have been asking me, why didn't you release the book? Why didn't you release the book? Because of all my stories. And
you're serious about this book. You're not just blowing smoke up.
No, my book is already written. I've done it already.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Well,
you know, and of course, DJs and Beers will be obviously mentioned in it as well, because it's important that people understand that DJs can have a chat and talk about our life in general based on our experiences, which, you know, people just want us to play music. Play music. Yeah, come on, we want to hear the beats. Hang on, what about our stories? I think it's important that people understand that at the end of the day, you know, we are just too. Everyone else.
Yeah.
The one thing that I mean, that the Ian factors into this, the one thing that I attribute to your success, maybe you do as well, is the team around you. I think you've always had a great crew of people that you've collaborated with, that have your back, that go to bat for you, no matter what. And I see the enthusiasm at which, you know, they do that. How do you, you know, get this amazing team together, and how do you motivate them constantly to, you know, to just do this for you? Like,
I think more than anything, it's just my drive. I have a drive. I get up in the morning, you know. I'll do these things. I kind of again, it's risk and reward. You know, I put my toe in the water to see if it's warm enough for me to swim in. This kind of thing, and I think because of that kind of attitude, brings people around me to feel that if Carl's got this drive and this energy and this rhythm, that I can help him to continue, you know, my strive to get to the places that I believe that I've ended up in.
How do they find their way to you? Like, how does that happen? Like, you've always had such an amazing team. Like, do you seek them out? Are you always on the, you know?
No, they come to me. Ian, you know, Ian actually came to me by one of his best friends, because I used to work at a record shop called My Price in Brighton, and a place called Trafalgar Street. And My Price basically was a subsidiary of a record store that was in Croydon many years ago, of where Jazzy M used to work, and Colin Dale. So here's a bit for you. Now, I was asked if, because I lived in Brighton at the time, would I like the opportunity to run a record store? And I'm like, risk and reward. Yeah, why not? You know, that, I mean, I'm like a kid in a candy store. Carl Cox running his own record store. Can you imagine all those amazing imports that only 4 of them come in? I'm going to get one of them at least. Yes. So that was it. They found a shop. I was basically the manager of running that shop. Meanwhile, Ian's friend Anthony Deness used to come in to buy records because they were inspiring DJs, and at that particular time, I used to also sell tickets for rave parties, Sunrise in particular, and Energy and Universe for the South Coast, for the Brighton community, and that's how I kind of became, you know, the consummate DJ on the South Coast. But Ian was always kind of like, well, Carl could do with a driver because he's doing everything himself, just to relieve myself to be able to get to all these events. And, you know, I'm on the phone, I'm doing this, I'm selling tickets, I'm in a record store. And then Ian just said one day, he goes, I think I'm finishing my job. Do you want a tour manager or someone to help you out at least? And I said, you know, I could actually do with a bit of help. So you know, obviously you needed to get some money and get paid, of course. And we came to that many years ago. But his dedication was phenomenal, because for the first 2 years, he wasn't out on the field. He was basically executive PAing me to begin with at my home in Horsham. So every day he would come into my house in Horsham and just basically put everything together, the flights, you know, obviously the visas, all that kind of stuff. And then eventually went out in the field, so he had to learn exactly from the humble beginnings of being the person that he is today. And I think that was what's given us such great standing between ourselves of understanding each other. It's not like me hiring him to do a job. Yeah. He knows everything about what I need. At the end of the day, if I need peace and quiet, he makes sure I get it. If I'm in the field, he knows that I'm in there, you know, 100%. Even today, up 5 o'clock in the morning. He didn't have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, but he did. And that's a testament to him. I did pay him $5,000, by the way. But anyway, he got up and here he is. But you know what? That stands for a special bond. That stands for a lot. I mean, at the end of the day, or a testament to who he is. And all my friends around me have the same sort of ethos that Ian has also.
So, Carl, have you never sold any records since you started buying records? If you've got 150,000, I mean.
Again, really? Yeah, I wanted to say that 150,000 records, please.
Yeah, it's more than that, isn't it?
Yeah, no is the answer. There's been many times when I've thought to myself, I've had enough. They've taken up too much room. I don't play these bloody things anyway. They're more raw materials. Bin them, right? And I'm just many times, and I'm thinking, well, that's my sound library. I can use them to get samples from and be inspired by. So I keep them, you know. And I'm just like, I can't do it. They're just my legacy of who I am, you know, because a lot of their records in the beginning from 1968 are from my father's collection. Wow, so I can't bin them. But you know what I found quite sad the other day? And there's a guy called Saeed Yonan. And I think you know Saeed Yonan very well, Ali. Anyway, he showed me a picture of a skip with all his records tipped in it. He just tipped them in. He was selling them to begin with, but he's had enough. How do you throw them all away? Now, the thing is, what's got me to be so happy in my life to where I am at the moment is because I'm playing vinyl again in such a way that I have the heart for the music that was released on vinyl is the reason why I can never get rid of them. Doesn't matter what. And I saw those records in a skip. But the thing is, the Cabin Fever shows have been so amazing, the response from it, that I love going into my garage and choosing the records to play week in, week out. And that's one of the reasons why I can't get rid of them as well, especially right now, because it's my life history and legacy of the history of music, me collecting them for so many years.
So I'm sure you got to cherish them and love them even more during this time that you have them there. Do you have all the 150,000 records down there in Australia? And are they all really well organized?
Yeah,
one thing for sure, and they're not well organized at all. You know, I've got 1988 over there, I've got 2005 over there, and I'm just like, why didn't I put them in any order? It's because I wasn't using them anymore. That was it. They were done. You know, I've got the digital. You know, I'm playing USB. I'm playing computer, tractor, final scratch at the beginning. You know, final. You know, but the thing is about it is that they are historic at the end of the day. And the thing is, when I do my Cabin Fever shows, I haven't claimed them since the day I put them away. So if I'm playing a record from 1976 or a record from 1988 with all the beer and everything all over them, when you hear the scratches on them, it's because they haven't been cleaned since the day I last used them, which is endearing because if those bloody things still play, that's the reason why you buy vinyl, because they're there with you, they're there for you for life. I do give them a little wipe, of course I do. You know, I got my little tissue and I get this down. Oh, you know, little wipe over. You know, you get the record, you put it on it. Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's it, all good. And you put it on the turntable and it plays. You're like, wow, that's unbelievable. And how robust the vinyl still is today. I played an acetate of a record that I had done many years ago called Visa, Let Me See You Move, which Stu Allen done the A side, I did the B side. And I'll swear that this record was never going to play, because normally acetates play like 10 plays and then you start to hear it wear down. But I've obviously played this a lot more than 10 plays, and it's on a 10-inch as well. And I just think, just for shits and giggles, let's see if this plays. And it did. Yeah. So I actually played it on my show live and it didn't jump. Meanwhile, I'm sweating away going, please stay in the groove, please stay in the groove. It sounded terrible. But I just thought, you know, I'm going to do it because historically, that's how we used to have, you know, music up front. I'm the only one with it, maybe one more person. You got it to hear it first, and that's how it came down. So there's no way I could tip my records in the bin like that. It's impossible to get rid of my records in that way. But they do take up a lot of room, there's no doubt about it. And when I do put my records in a record box now, I lift up the record box and go, whoa, really? Ian.
Do you ever do any vinyl sets, or before when doing some gigs on tour or anything?
So the last kind of vinyl set that I had done was my closing party at Space, because a lot of people that came in kind of 10 years into it didn't realize that because I was there for 16 years. So for the first years, it was just CDs and well, actually vinyl and then CDs. So I have 3 boxes of vinyl and a map worth of CDs. And then eventually the vinyl got weeded out, and then I was playing CDs, then I'm playing Tractor after that. So people from maybe 2008, 2009 onwards never saw me playing vinyl all the way through until 2016. So I decided on my last set that for the first 6 hours would just be vinyl tracks, and the last would be vinyl and digital tracks, which freaked people out because people they remember me for playing vinyl, but they never had a vision of me playing it. But also, I haven't played vinyl since 2005, 6, probably from 2006 and 2016 was the last time I played vinyl. So you can imagine I was a little bit rusty when I went back to playing vinyl, but I managed to jump back on the horse and get into it. But also I was quite delicate with the needle on the record and mixing the record in, because you've got nothing to help you. There's no sync button, there's no get out of jail free card with the loops, there's no trigger. Yeah. You know, if the needle's got dust on it and it knows nothing's saving you, it just goes across across the bladder. All the things, all the things. And sometimes if the record's cut too low and you put up too much bass, it just go woo. You know, the wow and flutter would come in and all that. Take the bass out and you go, oh man, you know, all of those woes. But it was really amazing that I was able to do that. But now I play vinyl nearly 2 times a week and go through my vinyl for my radio shows. In fact, my next stream, the virtual DJ Top 100, it's vinyl. It's a vinyl set. So I'm really enjoying coming back to playing vinyl again. And
how many Cabin Fever shows are you doing in a week? Only
one. It's on every Sunday. And I'm up to show number 27 now, and the show number 27 is on Sunday. So it's all vinyl. It's all slam records from 001 to
amazing.
But 3 turntables in the mix, enjoying life. Yeah, loving it.
Carl, you've obviously always been a champion for vinyl, but you've never been, as long as I've known you, you've never been afraid of embracing new technology in your DJ sets. And sometimes I've been with you at your villa in Ibiza when I'm due to play Space, and the guys from Native Instruments are coming over and showing you some new kit that you're going to be using for the first time at Space that night, and you have all the pressure of performing, to all the people that come, that'd be on your A game, A+ game, whatever. Like, how important is that to you to constantly try to push yourself forward and take risks in terms of how you perform?
I think you have to be in touch with what's going on around you and what's available to you. I mean, so many people remember me as the 3-deck wizard. I always thought I could push my envelope of being a DJ by adding 1 extra turntable, and I did. And I used to have people that used to stand there in front of the turntable, look, watching me going, okay, bring it, Coxie. And I play 1 record, play another one, mix those 2 in, put the 3rd one in, and have all 3 faders going. They'd be like, oh my God, he's a genius. And I'd be like, shit, this is going to run out any moment. Oh my God, help, in my mind, but I'll make it look easy. Yeah, wicked, no problem. So I always push myself in the end of the day, creatively as a DJ with envelopes or the elements of envelopes of technology. Now, when I started making music, I started off with obviously Apple Mac, very, very early Apple Mac with 4 megabyte hard disk, which was that was it. And I started off very very innocently with Creator and Notator, and this was the early days of basically making music digitally. So I was already in, when it came to making music digitally with the machines we were able to work with. And then obviously whatever modules and keyboards or whatever, daisy chaining everything and getting everything to work at one point, and then mixing all of those in a mixer was fantastic. Actually, I did a record with Mickey Finn and Aphrodite many years ago called Some Justice. And I helped them mix that record together, but they were using Commodore 64s. And because they were running out of channels, they used 2 Commodore 64s. And basically, when they were making that record, they pushed start on each one of them at the same time. And there was no MIDI clock or anything, but they would just play together all the way through. So you can have bass lines, rhythms, and sounds on one, and you can have kick drums, voices, and something else on another one. And we put that through a desk and mixed them. So I had this really shitty desk, I don't know what it was called, and it went through some NS10s in my house at the time. I'm living in Hastings, and we mixed it at that time, and Some Justice was born, and that was a big track for them at that time. But that's how I worked with people. That's how I did it, and that for me, I kind of like wanted more. I wanted to find out more and more about working with technology. So when Final Scratch came out, it blew my mind. It was just like, it was one of the most unstable things I've ever seen in my life when it first started. I'm like, really? This needle digitally goes around and plays this file that goes along like this, and doesn't fall off a cliff or anything. John Aquaviva was obviously was pioneering it when Jim Masters was playing with it at the beginning, and it was dropping out, and there'd be no music because the sound card would blow up and all this. I'm like, no way, Jose. I'm playing these things called CDs, and that's where I'm going. So I went on the CD route. And then, of course, Final Scratch came back, and then Tractor was born, and then I came out of the CDs into Tractor, and anything else you could put in and out of that, which was just phenomenal. And I found myself going into USBs because I like playing the CD players as turntables. I don't know if you ever noticed, if you ever seen any of my sets, the CD players are never synced. I can't get myself into that lock groove. I like to do spin backs and cuts and that kind of thing. So in the last 3 years, there's been no laptop. But I've gone through everything you can think of: Behringer mixers, all sorts of different elements to my music, and try to be creative as much as possible with that. But now that I've just started to do my live shows, I found that I needed to have something which was kind of DJ-ish with MIDI applications. So the DJs 1000 Pioneer is which I've been working on since the pandemic, sitting in this very place with the thing in front of me, just putting loops and samples and making tunes as I'm going along. I actually was watching tutorials with DJ Sneak about it, and basically learning by what he had done, and applying that to what I felt that I could have an embodiment of my music when I'm going out and playing live. And then that runs all the machines. And I've just bought a thing called a Mother 32 Moog, and I'm just getting into modular sounds, which I was scared of to begin with. When I saw those wires hanging out of modular, I'm just like, really? This is crazy. But the sounds that come out of modular, it's absolutely mind-blowing. It's where's it been all my life? So I'm getting into modular sound at the moment. I'm just loving it. So I've got this straight sound coming out of the DJs 1000, going into all my machines. I've got a thing called a monologue, which is just amazing, going through the new Behringer TD3, acid. I've got the sound coming out of the DJs 1000. I'm using the TR8 just on the fly. Just my live set, and you can see that on my first live show. You can see it on Mystery Lands when we did our ASW live show with all the other live artists. And I feel now that, to be honest, I might not ever go out and DJ anymore. I feel like I'm just gonna go live, and then basically anyone that wants to join me along my life journey gets MIDI clocked, and we just go for it. I'm really, 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 really enjoying that.
Actually, like that's an interesting question. Like, did you ever, maybe back in the day, did you ever do any live like hardware sets with, like, I mean, you had to bring a ton of gear back in the day. It's not like bringing a computer.
100%. I've actually been a live artist 3 times. The first time I went out was when I was signed to Perfecto Records, and I made a record called I Want You Forever. I decided that I wanted to elaborate on my DJing with an MC and have a guy called Neil McLennan, who actually used to produce music for the Prodigy. And I met Neil McLennan actually years before that, when I went on tour with him, when he was doing all the sequencing and programming for Guru Josh back in the day. And that's how it started, my association with Neil. So Neil McLennan would do studio sessions at a studio called Orinoco Studios in London, but also then Neil went on to work at Strong Rooms in Shoreditch. And so I was always there working with Neil, making tunes, working with different artists and stuff. So that's how I cut my teeth onto working in the studio, was working with Neil McLennan. Now, the thing was, to go on tour, I needed someone to do the sequencing and programming while I could basically play the keys and then roll the crowd up and that kind of stuff. And we did that for like 2 years. But I found that doing those two things as a DJ and live, you had to do one or the other. You can't do both. And so my DJing was still on the up and up. So I decided not to do that anymore. And then I did it again in 2010. But I didn't take the whole thing on the road. But I made an album called All Roads Leads to the Dance Floor, and there was a lot of musicians and singers that I had that basically made a lot of the tunes on that album. I had a band basically, so I took it on the road in Australia only, and I found it'd be quite difficult to have all these people around me. They needed this, they needed that, blah blah blah. So I didn't continue with that. 2010. So I had all the equipment, and it was just sitting there doing absolutely nothing for years and years. And I'm like, you know what? Let's just connect all the dots and then see what happens. So Christopher Coe, he used to be Digital Primate many years ago. I've been working with him in the studio because he built my studio here in Australia. He's a live artist. I've been inspired by what he's been doing for me to go and do the same in my way, in the way that I would like to project my sound onto the dance floor now from a live artist point of view. So I'm not scared of going out and doing that. I remember one time many years ago where my live act was being booked alongside the Prodigy. So it's kind of like people would come to see the Prodigy, and then I'll go out and do my live act, you know, with my tunes at the time, with the big tune being "I Want You Forever." But I could see that the people were more gravitating to the Prodigy, so I thought, you know what, I'll just keep going, and I'll be fine.
Did you play before or after them?
Oh, before.
Oh,
Oh, before we thought we could take them over, but it's not possible.
They have new music coming out. Like, I don't know if maybe their new single dropped today, or they have something that they just announced.
Yeah, I saw that. I mean, I've been following their efforts on what they do next, and you know, poor old Keith. It was his birthday yesterday. 51 years old. Rest in peace. He grew into the Prodigy. So before Keith, there was always Liam Howlett. Liam Howlett was always the man that drove the sound. I kind of inspired by him because that was the Prodigy sound to begin with, and then everyone kind of came onto him as they went along to diverse the sound of the Prodigy, and then end up in America and everything that goes with it. But you know, I think they need to still continue to carry on. I think when it's in your blood, and also every time you go out, you can pay respects to Keith in the end of the day. I think it's always difficult when you lose a band member because it became the embodiment of your popularity at the end of the day. But I think if they flash images of Keith and that coming in on certain tracks with their new music, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think it's a really good thing.
Wow. We've been talking for half hours. This is crazy.
Carl, this is pretty amazing.
Questions that I want to ask you. Like, I think we're going to need a part 2 with you. Just like with
definitely a part 2.
You know,
we're barely touching the surface.
Yeah, we had Danny Tenaglia on, and he just like we ended in the early 2000s, and we need to get him on for a second part. Maybe that is an idea to get you and Danny on, and we do a 12-hour show. At some point, I'm still at that.
That's a lot of beer.
Yes.
Fantastic. It's so amazing to talk to you guys, you know, and you know, obviously when we get to see each other, it'd be a different conversation. But you know what, I mean, I think we just keep going, just keep doing what we're doing.
We just could keep going. I just want to add one thing, Carl, because I couldn't get to this. You're also a champion of young artists. You've always been in for the young upcoming artists and giving them a spot, giving them plays on a stage. I think that's really, really fantastic. And I thank you for doing this. I can thank you for one thing, which I actually only found out 2 years ago. That in '99 you did a top 5, and I think it was for Channel 4 or something like this. And in '99 it was broadcasted from Ibiza, and on place number 5 you featured a record that I released back then on Primate. And I literally found that out. It was like 21 years ago. Thank you for that, Carl. Thank you, because it really was like that was something that gives you so much motivation. I mean, in hindsight, obviously, but it was like, wow, great. And you've been always doing this. And for everyone you've helped out and gave motivation, let me thank you for all, and including myself. This is amazing, Carl. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for bringing that to my attention. I mean, I kind of do all these things without even thinking about it. You know, when I signed Renato Cohen Pontepe, you know, I was in Brazil and I heard this record he played, or this track he played, you know, and I just thought, you know, Vintech Records at the time, which I started with C1 and then eventually was working with John Rundell on the label. This track was just pounding, and it didn't go anywhere apart from just up and up, and the power of it, the strength of it. And I just went, I said, listen, I would love to sign this record off you. You know, I said, there's not much money in you know, to up front, but I can give you a certain amount. And I said, if you're happy with that, we'll sign it 50-50 deal, and we'll just put it out on Intech. So it came out on Intec, you know, as a single-sided record. And when he sent me the file of that track, there's like only 10 tracks running. So it was all in the arrangement and the actual sound of it. And I put it on Intec. Like I said, risk and reward. Put it out, and it became the biggest record on Intec, you know, which got Renato Cohen from nobody knowing who he was to him being on all stages all around the world for techno.
Sorry.
Yeah, so Renato Cohen. So the mad thing was, this record was beyond me in some way. I thought, shit, what do we do with this now? So I did a remix of the record, because what I did was Tim Deluxe, his track Just Won't Do, had an a cappella on that record. And I used to play the version of Renato Cohen and then play the a cappella live. And I kept doing that, and it made it even bigger. So it got to a point I said, you know, I've had enough of this. I can't keep doing it live. And I said, you know, I was in a hotel and I had my Pro Tools at the time, and I put the records in the Pro Tools, and I put these records together, and then I mastered it, and then I put that back out again, and it went into the top 40. This record that was like this going into the top 40. I said, this is amazing. And these are the kind of things that I absolutely love, that I'm able to help anyone that's out there with a vision of support. Because I think we all need support in some ways. My new record label, Awesome Soundwave is ASW, is all about that. Still taking people that are out there, guys and girls, that are making some amazing electronic live music right now, that are in their bedrooms, not getting a chance. I hear something, I put the music out as an embodiment of their sound, so it can go anywhere. Is what I'm really excited about. And for me to join a merry band of them, I have to be live as well. I can't just be a DJ playing their music, of which I have done in the past. But now, because we did a showcase in October of what we did at ADE anyway, and it worked really well. Matt Playford, Julian Chappelle, Satek, the list goes on. Amazing. And Renee Zonnerfield at the moment, through the roof. So,
Carl, can I tell you one story? I'm not sure if I ever told you that before. Do you know that you can thank me for the Pontapa record, actually?
Probably.
Of my stupidity. I was playing with Renato in Brazil, yeah? And I was playing right after him at a party. And it was at a time where Pontapa was not released yet. And he played Pontapa as his last record. And I was standing behind him, was like, what the hell is this? Like, dude, what is this record? And I knew Renato from years before already. And he looked at me and said, like, you know what? I sent this to you as a demo, but you never replied. So I sent it to Intec to Carl. It was my story of never releasing the best. But I think it worked out for everyone for the better.
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I was quite fortunate enough to have the ability to put that record out, but it was phenomenal. I mean,
it was amazing.
It was absolutely amazing. You know, when at a point in life something just blows you away. Well, that record blew me away, and I had the opportunity to represent that on our record label at that time, Intec, which was very much independent until the time it you know, stopped putting records out and it went digital, which changed everything anyway. But you know, we're still putting records out on Intec, but I'm having a lot more fun at the moment with the new label, with the new live artists.
Carl, please come back for part 2. Thank you so much for. I know it was excruciating early. Sorry to make you drink beer at 5:30 in the morning when you're chilling at home in Melbourne.
As they say, it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah.
It's 5 o'clock. It was 5 o'clock for me in the morning. That's what it was.
5 p.m. It doesn't matter.
It's 4:20 somewhere too at right now. Not right now. 16 minutes ago.
Yeah. Please do our best to Ian. I have to give a shout out to the La Briga Hotel, which is where I'm at the moment. They're giving me this beautiful room to do this chat in. And thank you once again, and I hope to see you soon.
Thanks, Carl.
Thanks, Matt. Awesome, Matt. Chandikate, thank you.
Thanks,
Chris.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Out of here.
Ciao, everybody.
See you next week.
Everybody.
Oh, and Justin as well, wherever he's gone. I can't see him.
Hold on. So your next Cabin Fever is this Sunday, right? Just for people to know.
This Sunday, all about Soma records, all vinyl. Some of the records that came out of Soma are like,
Yeah.
forgotten about. You know, yeah, it's definitely a good heartfelt Scottish
I'll be
man.
tuning in so
Made
miles
that
away.
Awesome.
Since we were talking about new artists, I should mention that next week we have Sophia Days on our show. So everyone tune in for that.
Days.
Excellent.